In a world where the boundaries between reality and game mechanics had fused, society had transformed. Professions rooted in fantasy were now commonplace, and the discovery of ruins and secret realms had become an integral part of life. At a local academy, the excitement was palpable. A teacher, brimming with enthusiasm, addressed his class, urging them to prepare for the upcoming job transition ceremony. His voice resonated with excitement, fueling the energy in the room as students eagerly gathered their belongings, ready to experience a life-changing event. However, in stark contrast to the lively atmosphere, one student sat silently at the back of the classroom. His name was Lu Fan, and his demeanor stood out among the buzzing energy. While his classmates clamored to leave, he remained seated, his face etched with unease. Noticing this, the teacher approached him, concern flickering in his eyes. "Lu Fan, what's wrong? You're the top student in this class, you have nothing to worry about," the teacher reassured him. But Lu Fan appeared distracted, his gaze unfocused as if he were seeing something no one else could. Suddenly, a translucent screen materialized before his eyes, displaying vibrant text. "Congratulations! The Super Treasure Map system has been successfully activated." For a moment, Lu Fan was stunned, unable to process what had just occurred. The appearance of this mysterious system left him speechless. Before he could dwell on it further, the teacher's voice snapped him back to reality. "Lu Fan! Are you even listening to me?" the teacher barked, his patience wearing thin. Startled, Lu Fan quickly apologized, scrambling out of his seat. "I'm going now." "Sorry, sir," he blurted, hastily making his way out of the classroom. As he descended the stairs, his thoughts raced. A system? His mind whirled with questions. He muttered under his breath, "There's no way I could survive in a world like this without one." Despite his curiosity about its purpose, he decided to push those thoughts aside for now. Reaching the bottom of the staircase, Lu Fan steadied himself. First things first, he resolved. The job transition ceremony awaited, and it was too important to miss. Outside the academy building, a large crowd of students had already gathered. They stood before an elevated stage, where a dazzling object drew their attention, a massive crystalline structure that radiated an ethereal glow. "Is that the job transition crystal?" one student whispered, eyes wide with amazement. "I've never seen one before." "Same here," another added nervously, shifting their weight from one foot to the other. The murmurs grew louder until a commanding voice from the stage boomed across the courtyard. "Quiet," the speaker ordered, silencing the chatter instantly. All eyes turned to the stage, where the ceremony was about to begin, the anticipation in the air thick enough to cut with a blade. As Lu Fan navigated through the dense crowd, snippets of conversation buzzed around him. He passed by a student animatedly sharing his aspirations. "It'd be incredible if I awakened as a hidden combat professional," the student said, his voice brimming with excitement. "Imagine being powerful, admired by thousands." However, his companion wasn't so optimistic. With a scoff, he replied, "Stop dreaming. Hidden combat professionals? In our school? You've got better odds of winning the lottery." He snorted and added with a smirk, "If I end up with a life profession, I'll be begging my ancestors for mercy." Up on the stage, an elderly man stepped forward, his commanding presence drawing the crowd's attention. "Students, the job transition ceremony is about to begin," he announced, his voice clear and authoritative. "Joining me today is the priest who will oversee this year's transitions." The announcement sparked a wave of whispers among the students. They gazed at the priest with awe and curiosity. "That's the professional who manages job transitions?" someone murmured. "Look at his aura," another marveled. "It's so strong. Imagine awakening with an aura like that." While others were lost in admiration, Lu Fan quietly observed the priest. Even from a distance, he could sense the imposing presence of a true combat professional. His thoughts, however, were interrupted by a sudden notification from his system. "New skill acquired, Eye of Appraisal." The unexpected message left Lu Fan momentarily stunned. "Eye of Appraisal," he muttered. Without hesitation, he activated the skill. A translucent interface appeared before him, displaying a glowing icon hovering over the priest. With growing curiosity, Lu Fan tapped on it, and a detailed profile of the priest materialized in front of him. "So, this skill lets me see a person's stats and attributes," Lu Fan thought, his nerves easing slightly as he realized the utility of his newfound ability. Meanwhile, the student's attention shifted to a particular individual in the crowd. Tall, confident, and exuding natural charisma, he stood out among his peers. "That guy must have insane attributes," one student commented enviously. "Look at the way he carries himself. He's a shoo-in for a combat profession." "I heard job transitions are mostly random," another replied. "But yeah, better stats do increase the chances. And he's not just strong, he's ridiculously handsome." Cheers and whispers filled the air as the priest began the ceremony. With practiced ease, the priest raised his hands, invoking his skills. The crowd fell silent as the glowing job transition crystal at the center of the stage began to radiate a mesmerizing light. The tall student stepped forward, his face brimming with confidence as the priest focused his energy on him. The crystal's glow intensified, bathing the stage in its ethereal light, signaling that the transition process had begun. Every pair of eyes was fixed on the stage, anticipation and envy thick in the air. The job transition crystal suddenly flared with a brilliant light, producing a massive, swirling ball of fire that crackled with intense heat. Gasps and murmurs swept through the crowd as students stared in awe. "He's a mage," someone exclaimed, pointing at the glowing sphere. "Not just any mage, he can cast fireballs." "Zhang Tao really became a combat professional," another shouted, their voice tinged with both envy and admiration. The name Zhang Tao echoed through the crowd as the newly transitioned student stepped forward with a smug smile. Raising his hand, he conjured a small, blazing fireball that hovered above his palm. The students erupted into cheers and whispers. "Zhang Tao is incredible. He's destined for greatness," one student gushed. "Yeah, his future is as bright as that fireball," another agreed. "If I were him, I wouldn't let anyone get near me. I'd totally cling to his leg," someone joked, causing laughter among the group. Meanwhile, Lu Fan stood silently, his gaze fixed on the stage. Awe mixed with a hint of anxiety flickered in his eyes. Once someone becomes a combat professional, they can leave behind the mundane life of an ordinary person, he murmured to himself, marveling at the transformation. The elder on stage, however, was far from pleased. His stern expression deepened as he slammed his staff against the ground. "Enough," he barked, his voice cutting through the commotion. "Quiet down and let's continue the ceremony." Reluctantly, the students fell silent as the next candidates were called up. One by one, they stepped forward to face the crystal, their fates unfolding before their peers. A young man approached and completed his transition, a soft green glow surrounding him. "I'm a herbalist," he declared, his voice filled with pride. "I'll carry on my family's legacy." The next participant, a bulky, muscular student, wasn't as lucky. "A tailor," he grumbled, his voice laced with frustration. "This can't be right. I don't even like sewing." A thin, nervous student followed. As the crystal completed his transition, his face fell. "A miner," he stammered, trembling. I don't want this." Standing on the sidelines, Lu Fan observed the proceedings, his thoughts racing. "So, combat professions really are rare," he mused, his expression thoughtful. "Most people end up with life professions instead. It's clear that awakening as a combat professional opens the door to limitless opportunities." He turned his gaze back to the crowd, noting the stark contrast between the students. Those who had transitioned into combat roles were radiant with joy, basking in the admiration of their peers. In stark contrast, those who awakened life professions wore expressions of disappointment, their shoulders slumped under the weight of dashed hopes. For them, Lu Fan thought, awakening as a life professional often means resigning to a life of mediocrity. As his mind lingered on this harsh reality, a voice interrupted his thoughts. The student in front of him turned around and, with a faint smile, said, "Even so, it's still not the worst outcome." The comment caught Lu Fan off guard, leaving him momentarily speechless. The boy sighed and leaned closer to Lu Fan, muttering, "Did you hear about Li Ping from Class 3? His family's already struggling to make ends meet, and he got stuck with the most expensive enhancement profession. It's practically worse than a life profession. At least life professions come with a usable skill." Lu Fan's gaze instinctively shifted toward a boy standing off to the side, his shoulders slouched and his face clouded with despair. Li Ping, the student in question, seemed overwhelmed by the weight of his newfound burden. A cold chill ran down Lu Fan's spine as he glanced back at the stage. His own family's financial situation wasn't great either, and he couldn't shake the unsettling thought of what might happen if he ended up in a similar position. Before he could dwell on it further, the sound of his name being called snapped him out of his thoughts. "Lu Fan," the elder bellowed, his voice echoing across the courtyard. Startled, Lu Fan raised his hand hastily. "Here. I'm here," he called back, his voice slightly shaky. Taking a deep breath, he made his way toward the stage. As he climbed the steps, scattered whispers followed him. "Hey, isn't he kind of handsome?" a female student murmured, nudging her friend. "I wonder what profession he'll get." Reaching the center of the stage, Lu Fan found himself standing before the glowing job transition crystal. His heart pounded in his chest, but he forced himself to stay calm. No point in being nervous now, he told himself. Whatever happens, happens. The priest began chanting, his voice low and resonant as he activated his skills. Energy swirled around the crystal, and its glow intensified. Lu Fan watched intently as the crystal came alive, radiating a powerful light. Suddenly, an eerie image appeared within its depths, a single, piercing dragon's eye that seemed to look directly at him. The ground beneath the stage began to rumble, causing gasps of alarm to ripple through the crowd. "What's going on? Is this an earthquake?" a student shouted, gripping their friend's arm for balance. Before anyone could answer, a brilliant beam of light shot down from the heavens, enveloping Lu Fan in its radiant glow. The students shielded their eyes, squinting against the brightness. As the light faded, an enormous dragon materialized behind Lu Fan, its scales glistening like molten gold and its presence utterly commanding. "Look!" someone exclaimed. "Lu Fan's job transition summoned a dragon." "That's insane," another student added, their voice trembling with excitement. "This kind of phenomenon only happens with hidden professions." "Wait, a hidden profession? Are you serious?" someone else asked, eyes wide with disbelief. Meanwhile, a female teacher standing at the edge of the courtyard hurriedly pulled out her communicator and called Mr. Li, Lu Fan's homeroom teacher. "Mr. Li, your class has produced the school's first hidden profession. Can you believe it?" Mr. Li's voice crackled over the line, filled with awe and speculation. If that's true, and Lu Fan transitions into one of the strongest hidden professions, like a dragon blood warrior or a dragon language mage, he could become a pivotal figure in the Dragon Kingdom's history. He might even rival the legends. The dragon hovering above Lu Fan roared thunderously, its voice shaking the air and sending waves of awe through the gathered students. "It's been 10 years since someone became a dragon blood warrior," Mr. Li continued, his tone reverent. "And that person is now the Dragon Kingdom's greatest expert," the female teacher added, her eyes shining with anticipation as she gazed at Lu Fan. Could he be next? On the stage, Lu Fan stood motionless, the dragon's presence behind him casting a shadow over the awestruck crowd. Mr. Li and the gathered crowd held their breath as all eyes fixated on Lu Fan, waiting to see what profession would emerge from such a spectacular display. Meanwhile, the massive dragon in the air let out a deafening roar that shook the earth. Without warning, it swooped down toward Lu Fan in a blur of golden scales, its dive triggering an explosion of light and force that sent shockwaves rippling across the stage. Students screamed in alarm, their hands shielding their faces from the blinding light. On stage, Lu Fan flinched instinctively, throwing his arms up to protect himself from the impact. The dragon's immense presence seemed to overwhelm the area, leaving many frozen in awe and fear. The priest and the elder, alarmed by the chaos, rushed toward Lu Fan. The elder reached him first, gripping his arm firmly. "Quickly! What's your profession?" he demanded, his voice sharp with urgency. "Are you a dragon blood warrior? Or perhaps a dragon language mage?" Lu Fan hesitated, his face pale as he avoided the elder's piercing gaze. Taking a deep breath, he bit his lip before muttering, I'm a dragon tamer." For a moment, there was silence. Then, the elder's expression twisted in disbelief, and Mr. Li's brows furrowed deeply. "A dragon tamer?" the elder repeated, his voice rising with incredulity. "After all that spectacle? That grand scene? And you ended up as a dragon tamer?" The disappointment in his tone was unmistakable. He shook his head, muttering bitterly, "Of all the hidden professions, why the most useless one?" His words cut like a blade, leaving Lu Fan standing there, shoulders slumped under the weight of their expectations. After the job transition ceremony concluded, Lu Fan wandered the streets of Zhong City, his footsteps slow and aimless. The old town district stretched before him, its narrow alleys bustling with life, but he barely noticed the activity around him. His focus was entirely on the glowing screen hovering before him, the system interface only he could see. His eyes scanned the information displayed, his mind replaying the events of the ceremony. The weight of the elder's disappointment and the murmurs of the students echoed in his ears. "You're destined for mediocrity," one student had said, their words biting as they dismissed him. "Humans can't possibly tame creatures as powerful as dragons." Another had nodded in agreement. "Sure, it's a hidden class," they had sneered, "but it's the weakest one in terms of actual strength. What's the point of a title if it can't deliver results?" Lu Fan sighed deeply, the memory stinging like a fresh wound. His gaze hardened as he stared at the system screen. Though the doubts of others weighed on him, a flicker of resolve sparked in his eyes. If the system chose him as a dragon tamer, there had to be a reason. He just needed to figure it out. When one of the students overheard the conversation about dragon tamers being considered the weakest, he turned to the person next to him for confirmation. "Isn't dragon tamer still classified as one of the 3 major hidden professions, alongside dragon blood warrior and dragon language mage?" he asked skeptically. The other student nodded but added with a smirk, "It is, technically. But what's the point? Nobody can even find dragons, let alone tame them. Honestly, it'd be better to choose something like a summoner. At least they can call for creatures that actually show up." Meanwhile, the elder on stage, recovering from his initial shock, attempted to console Lu Fan. Patting his shoulder, he offered a thin smile. "Well, at least you've awakened a hidden class," he said. "Dragon tamers have limitless potential. Who knows? Maybe you'll manage to tame some lesser dragons and still achieve great power." Lu Fan's expression remained grim. Shaking his head, he replied bitterly, "Limitless potential? A dragon tamer without a dragon is nothing but a joke. And even if I somehow found lesser dragons, they're just ferocious beasts. They could never compare to real dragons." His voice dropped as he continued, "In the entire 800-year history of the Dragon Kingdom, there have been sightings of dragons, but not once has there been a dragon tamer who actually tamed one. Even the strongest humans are like ants before the might of a true dragon. Trying to tame one? It's an impossible dream, nothing more." Lu Fan sighed, his gaze falling to the hidden system interface floating before him. Swiping at the screen, he muttered to himself, "Without a dragon tamer can't unlock skills, let alone grow stronger. What's the point of potential if it's locked behind something unattainable?" His shoulders slumped further as thoughts of his aunt weighed heavily on him. She had sacrificed so much, working tirelessly to ensure he could attend school. Yet now, with this so-called hidden profession, he felt powerless to give her the better life she deserved. Lost in his thoughts, Lu Fan hardly noticed his surroundings until he arrived at a familiar street. The scent of freshly steamed buns wafted through the air, bringing him back to reality. Glancing up at the sign, he realized he'd unconsciously walked home. Taking a deep breath, Lu Fan straightened himself and forced a smile onto his face. Pushing open the door to the modest bun shop, he called out cheerfully, "Auntie, I'm home." Inside, his aunt, Han Ki, was busy arranging a tray of piping hot buns. She looked up at the sound of his voice, her face lighting up with joy. "Lu Fan, you're back," she exclaimed warmly. The aroma of the meal she had prepared filled the room as she motioned for him to sit. Despite the heaviness in his heart, Lu Fan's smile widened, knowing he couldn't let his worries dampen her happiness. For now, he would set aside his doubts and cherish this moment of comfort and familiarity. Lu Fan was caught off guard when Han Ki greeted him with an enthusiastic hug, her joy evident in her voice as she exclaimed, "You're back." Before he could respond, she clasped his arm and eagerly led him to the dining table. Her smile was radiant as she said, "Today was your big day. Your job transition must have gone well." As they sat down, Han Ki leaned forward with anticipation. "So? What profession did you awaken?" she asked. Lu Fan hesitated, his shoulders drooping as he struggled to form an answer. His expression turned somber, and Han Ki noticed immediately. Concern flickered in her eyes, but she quickly spoke up to reassure him. "It's okay, you know. Even if you didn't awaken as a combat professional, that's fine by me. I'd just worry if you were out there fighting dangerous battles every day." Before she could finish, Lu Fan cut her off with a quiet, "No, it's not that." His words faltered as he confessed, I awakened as a dragon tamer." His gaze dropped to the table, unable to meet hers. "But it's a profession that's practically useless without a dragon." To his surprise, Han Ki didn't react with shock or disappointment. Instead, she broke into a warm, genuine smile. Rising from her seat, she walked over and hugged him from behind, resting her chin on his shoulder. "A dragon tamer? That's wonderful," she said brightly. "It means you're incredibly strong, even if you don't see it yet." Her voice was steady, filled with unshakable confidence. "No matter what, I'll support you. If you decide to pursue college, I'll do everything I can to help you succeed. And if you don't want to, you can stay here and run the bun shop with me." Lu Fan felt his chest tighten with emotion. Her unwavering support and kind words filled him with gratitude. A small smile tugged at his lips as he said softly, "Thank you, Auntie." Han Ki clapped her hands together cheerfully and said, "Enough worrying for now. Let's eat." She gestured to the feast she had prepared. Lu Fan's eyes widened as he took in the sheer amount of food. This is way too much. How am I supposed to finish all this?" Not long after, Lu Fan found himself back in his small room, lying face first on his bed. As he stared at the ceiling, his thoughts drifted to Han Ki. Her hard-working hands flashed in his memory, and he sighed deeply. "She's only 26, he muttered to himself. Despite pouring years of effort into her life profession, she's still stuck living an ordinary life. She deserves so much better." Lu Fan's resolve grew as he stared at the system interface hovering faintly in his peripheral vision. For her sake, and his own, he would find a way to make his seemingly useless profession matter. Determined to change his fate, Lu Fan clenched his fists, staring at the ceiling with frustration. "I can't just accept this," he muttered, his voice trembling with emotion. "Being a dragon tamer, it's supposed to be a real hidden profession, but only if I can actually find a dragon." His frustration boiled over, and he slammed his fist against the mattress. I refuse to live like this. There has to be a way. As his thoughts spiraled, something unexpected caught his attention. A soft chime echoed in his mind, and the system's interface appeared before him. Congratulations. You've unlocked your first feature. A treasure map has been sent. Lu Fan's eyes widened in disbelief. A god-tier treasure map? On the very first day, he muttered, his voice filled with surprise. The realization hit him like a lightning bolt. Of course. The system is called the Super Treasure Map System. That's what it said when it activated. Excitement surged through him as he opened the chest that had materialized alongside the notification. He paused, recalling how he'd only tested the system's appraisal function earlier that day and hadn't explored its true potential. The system's voice chimed in again, providing an explanation. Treasure maps are divided into 4 levels: beginner, intermediate, advanced, and god tier. 3 identical lower-level maps can be combined into one higher-level map. Additionally, you will receive a treasure map every day, each corresponding to a randomly assigned level and location tied to your profession. Lu Fan read the explanation intently, his mind racing. Treasures tied to his profession? Could this be the key to unlocking the potential of a dragon tamer? When he clicked on the chest, a map appeared, displaying a marked location. A notification informed him. Today's treasure map, God tier. Location, stone plains near the mountain range. Danger level, 10. Lu Fan studied the map closely, his fingers tracing the outline of the area. The stone plains, it's not that far from Zhonghai City. If I catch the last suburban bus tonight, I can get there by dawn. Resolve flashed in his eyes as he closed the system screen. He stood up, a new determination swelling within him. If I give up now, I'll spend my whole life struggling at the bottom of society. I won't even be able to repay Auntie Han Ki for everything she's done for me. I can't let that happen. With his mind set, Lu Fan quickly began preparing for his journey, ready to embrace whatever challenges awaited him on the stone plains. This was his chance to prove that being a dragon tamer wasn't a curse, but a hidden blessing waiting to be uncovered. The first light of dawn broke over the bun shop, where Han Ki stirred awake. Stretching and rubbing her eyes, she stepped into the kitchen, expecting to find Lu Fan asleep in his room. But her steps faltered when she noticed a neatly folded letter sitting on the dining table. Curious and slightly uneasy, Han Ki picked up the letter and glanced toward Lu Fan's bedroom. The bed was empty. Lu Fan, she called out, but the house was eerily silent. Her gaze shifted back to the letter, and her heart tightened as she unfolded it. In the letter, Lu Fan explained his sudden departure. He wrote that he was heading to the stone plains near the mountains, convinced it might hold the key to rewriting the fate of a dragon tamer. He urged her not to worry and promised he would return safely. His words resonated with determination, but they couldn't dispel the shadow of worry that crept over Han Ki as she clutched the letter to her chest. Meanwhile, miles away, a bus rattled along the winding roads leading out of Zhonghai City and toward the mountain range. Lu Fan sat near the window, the rolling scenery flashing by as his thoughts churned. He replayed the message he left behind, telling Han Ki to wait for his return and that he would do everything in his power to secure a brighter future for both of them. The bus came to a screeching halt at its final stop, and Lu Fan stepped off into the crisp morning air. He glanced at the map displayed on his system screen, noting that his destination lay just ahead. Determination hardened his features as he gripped the straps of his pack. I promised her, he murmured to himself. I'll make sure we have the life we deserve. As Lu Fan moved toward the marked location, he noticed a group of 3 individuals following him off the bus. Their steps echoed his, and their gazes were sharp and calculating. He tightened his grip on his bag, uneasy but unwilling to confront them outright. His unease turned to alarm when he overheard snippets of their conversation. They were planning to ambush him and steal any valuable materials he might find. Lu Fan's heart pounded, but he kept his pace steady, muttering under his breath. One guy asked if he wanted to go together, but Lu Fan ignored him. In this wilderness, murder and robbery are as common as breathing. The 3 strangers blocked his path, their expressions smug and predatory. One, a wiry man with a crooked grin, leaned forward menacingly. Have you made up your mind yet? He sneered. Lu Fan instinctively reached for the dagger strapped to his waist, his hand trembling but firm. No thanks, stay back, he shouted, his voice wavering but loud enough to show he wouldn't go down without a fight. The woman in the group chuckled, blowing him a mocking kiss. Relax, sweetheart, she cooed before turning away. Her companions followed, their laughter echoing behind them. We'll see you around. Lu Fan's jaw tightened as he watched them retreat. Anger flared within him, and he muttered, despicable bastards. He adjusted his grip on the dagger, his knuckles white. A bitter sigh escaped him as he trudged forward. Even in the wilderness, where danger lurks at every turn, it's safer than being stabbed in the back by people like them, he mused aloud. His eyes burned with frustration as he stared at the rugged landscape ahead. Without strength, life is nothing more than a fleeting shadow, he muttered. Easily swept away by the winds of fate. But I won't let that be my story. With renewed resolve, Lu Fan pressed on, his every step echoing his determination to carve a new path for himself, no matter how perilous the journey. Glancing at the map displayed on his system interface, Lu Fan squinted at the faintly glowing marker indicating his destination. I need to move quickly, he muttered, feeling the urgency in his chest. Shortly after setting out, a faint rustling noise reached his ears. Instinctively, he crouched and ducked behind a nearby bush. Peering through the thick foliage, he spotted a herd of level 8 powerhorn horses grazing serenely in the open field ahead. Lu Fan's breath hitched. He knew that these creatures, though not aggressive by nature, would retaliate fiercely if disturbed. At his current level, 10 without any active skills, he wouldn't stand a chance against even one of them, let alone an entire herd. A cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Shaking his head, he muttered, "Forget it. It's not worth the risk." He carefully backed away from the bush, ensuring not to make any sudden noises, and veered onto an alternate path. As the grassy plains stretched endlessly around him, Lu Fan felt far from reassured. His surroundings grew eerily quiet, broken only by the faint rustle of wind and distant animal calls. With every step, he became more alert. The ground was dotted with level 7 giant horn antelopes, their bulky forms grazing lazily, but their large, spiraling horns gleamed menacingly in the sunlight. Lu Fan gulped, his voice a low mutter. So much for a safer route. It doesn't feel safe at all. His eyes darted nervously from one antelope to the next as he carefully maneuvered between them. I should be close, he murmured, checking the system map once more. Just a little. His sentence was abruptly cut off when his foot landed on something soft and slimy. A loud, agonized croak shattered the silence. Lu Fan's heart sank as he looked down to see a squished frog writhing underfoot. He froze. The grazing antelopes, startled by the sudden noise, turned their attention toward him. Their glowing eyes locked onto his trembling figure. One let out a guttural bellow, and the rest followed suit, their hooves stomping the ground in sync. "Oh, no," Lu Fan whispered, his face pale. Without another second to think, he bolted. The thunder of hooves behind him sent waves of panic coursing through his body as the herd charged in his direction. "Damn it," he cursed. "I just had to step on that frog." His lungs burned as he sprinted, dodging low branches and thick underbrush in a desperate attempt to lose the stampeding creatures. The ground quaked beneath him, each tremor a reminder of how close they were. Spotting a small ridge to his side, Lu Fan made a split-second decision. He threw himself to the ground, rolling into the grass and out of their path. A sharp jolt of pain shot through him as he hit the uneven terrain, but he gritted his teeth and stayed low. Peering back cautiously, he gasped. The ground where the frog once sat was now a crater, pulverized by the sheer force of the antelope's charge. Among the rubble, a pair of small frog legs protruded pitifully. "That could have been me," Lu Fan whispered, his voice trembling. Wiping the sweat from his brow, he let out a shaky laugh tinged with despair. "If I can't even deal with a skittish giant horn antelope, what hope do I have? Missing my chance out here might seal my fate just like that poor frog." Clenching his fists, he forced himself to stand, brushing off the dirt from his clothes. "No," he said, a spark of determination lighting his eyes. "I won't let it end like this." With renewed resolve, Lu Fan trudged forward, keeping an even sharper eye on his surroundings. The path was treacherous, but he had no choice but to push on. As Lu Fan trudged forward, his system suddenly pinged with a notification, breaking the silence of the wilderness. His heart raced as he read the message. He had reached the designated treasure map location. "This is it," he exclaimed, his voice filled with excitement. His eyes sparkled as they landed on a faintly glowing rock ahead. Approaching it cautiously, he scanned his surroundings for any potential threats. Satisfied that the area was clear, he stepped closer and examined the peculiar rock. Just beneath it, nestled in a hollow, lay an extraordinary object, a black egg, smooth and glossy, emanating a faint, otherworldly aura. Lu Fan's breath hitched. "A dragon egg," he whispered, awe and disbelief blending in his tone. His hands trembled as he gently touched its surface. "This is it," he murmured, his voice growing more resolute. "The treasure that could change everything for a dragon tamer." Before he could fully process the gravity of the moment, a sharp cracking noise pulled his attention back to the egg. Jagged lines spread across its shell, and Lu Fan's eyes widened in realization. "It's hatching," he gasped. The dragon's birth was imminent. Just as anticipation surged within him, a faint rustling noise came from the bushes behind him. Lu Fan's body tensed, and he immediately drew his novice cleaver, a plain but reliable weapon he had carried since his transition. His eyes darted toward the source of the disturbance. "So much for smooth sailing," he muttered, gripping his weapon tightly. The underbrush parted, revealing a sleek, feral creature with gleaming red eyes, a bloodthirsty gray fox. Its growl was low and guttural, a warning that it was not to be trifled with. Lu Fan recognized the beast instantly and cursed under his breath. The fox lunged without warning, its sharp teeth sinking into the edge of his cleaver. Lu Fan gritted his teeth as he pushed back, trying to free his weapon from the creature's vice-like grip. The fox snarled, its strength almost overpowering his own. "Not today," Lu Fan shouted, summoning every ounce of energy he had. With a battle cry, he twisted his cleaver and managed to force the fox off balance. The beast was flung to the ground with a yelp, skidding across the dirt before scrambling to its feet. Panting, Lu Fan quickly pulled up the system's interface to assess his adversary. The information flashed across the screen. Bloodthirsty gray fox. Skills. Triple claw strike, a swift 3-hit combo with devastating speed. Bloodthirst, boosts attack power as the fox grows more injured. Lu Fan's hands tightened around his weapon as he stared at the snarling beast. Of course, it couldn't be easy, he muttered through gritted teeth. But if I'm going to survive this, I'll need to end it before it gets stronger. Lu Fan stared at the information displayed on the system interface. The bloodthirsty gray fox's abilities made his heart sink. Skills. Triple claw strike, a rapid 3-hit combo designed to inflict severe bleeding. Bloodthirst recovery, regenerates health proportionate to the blood loss of its target. Lu Fan clenched his jaw, his mind racing. The combination of those skills meant the fox could wear him down and heal itself simultaneously, a deadly cycle he had no reliable way to counter. He cast a glance at the dragon egg behind him, its cracks deepening as faint tremors rippled across its surface. Hope flickered within him. If I can just hold out until the dragon hatches, maybe I can use dragon taming, he muttered. But his fleeting optimism was shattered by a blur of motion. The bloodthirsty gray fox lunged at him with startling speed, and Lu Fan barely had time to react. Instinctively, he raised his arm to block the attack. The fox's claws raked his forearm, drawing deep lines of crimson as he stumbled backward. "Damn it," he hissed through gritted teeth. The searing pain made it clear, he couldn't afford to drag this out. He had to deal with the fox before it could exploit its bloodthirst recovery. The fox crouched, its muscles coiling like a spring. Lu Fan's eyes narrowed as he braced himself. "It's preparing for the triple claw strike," he muttered, trying to calm his breathing. "I've got one shot to stop it." The fox pounced, slashing with ferocity. Lu Fan raised his weapon just in time to block the first strike. His arms trembled under the force of the blow. "One down," he murmured, his voice taut with focus. The second attack came even faster, and Lu Fan gritted his teeth as he parried it with a desperate swing of his cleaver. He staggered, feeling his strength wane. 2. The final strike was a blur. With all his remaining agility, Lu Fan twisted his body, narrowly evading the blow. The fox's claws sliced through the air, missing him by mere inches. "Now!" Lu Fan roared, pouring every ounce of strength into his counterattack. His cleaver came down in a powerful arc, slamming into the fox's side. A spray of blood erupted as the beast yelped and collapsed onto the ground, writhing in pain. Without hesitation, Lu Fan drove his weapon downward again, pinning the fox to the dirt. Panting heavily, he pulled his cleaver free, watching as the fox's movement stilled. The system chimed with a notification. Bloodthirsty gray fox defeated. Reward, 120 XP. Lu Fan let out a shaky breath, his body trembling from exhaustion. "I did it," he muttered, glancing back at the dragon egg. The cracks on its surface grew wider, a faint glow emanating from within. Lu Fan exhaled heavily, his chest rising and falling as he tried to calm his nerves. "Finally dealt with it," he muttered, his eyes briefly shifting to the lifeless body of the bloodthirsty gray fox. Before he could fully relax, a sharp laugh pierced the quiet air, sending a chill down his spine. Well, you actually managed to take it down," a raspy voice sneered. Lu Fan turned, his expression darkening as the group of robbers emerged from the shadows. The old man leading them clapped mockingly, his grin revealing crooked teeth. "Impressive work, kid," he said, his tone laced with insincerity. Lu Fan's eyes narrowed. "You've been following me this whole time," he accused, gripping his weapon tightly. "I already told you, I'm not interested in joining your little gang." The woman in the group waved her hand dismissively, her smile deceptively sweet. "Relax, handsome. No need to get all worked up," she purred. "We just wanted to see if you were lying to us." "Lying?" Lu Fan growled, his jaw tightening. The old man chuckled, his eyes glinting with amusement. "You said you were a summoner, didn't you? Yet, here you are, fighting tooth and nail with no skills to back you up. Makes one wonder." Lu Fan's grip on his cleaver faltered momentarily, but he quickly masked his unease. Without a word, he kicked the bloodthirsty gray fox's corpse toward them, the carcass landing with a dull thud at their feet. If it's the foxes fur you want, take it. Now leave me alone. The old man crouched, gripping the fox by its tail and inspecting it with a smirk. This? Worth maybe 80 dragon coins at best, he scoffed. His grin widened as his gaze shifted back to Lu Fan. But that's not what we're after, is it? Lu Fan stiffened, his blood running cold as he caught the old man's lingering gaze. It wasn't on him, it was on the dragon egg behind him, still faintly glowing as cracks continued to form along its surface. Bastards, Lu Fan spat, realization dawning on him. You saw me searching for it? The old man stood, his expression turning sinister. Boys, let's not waste any more time. Get him. Lu Fan barely had a moment to react before the muscular brute and the sly woman charged at him. The man rushed forward like a bull, while the woman drew a thin, gleaming blade and pointed it at him with a mocking pout. Such a shame, she cooed, her eyes gleaming with malice. You're too handsome to die here. Lu Fan gritted his teeth, raising his cleaver defensively as he prepared for the inevitable clash. The muscular man grinned victoriously as he grabbed the dragon egg, his large hands cradling it like a prized trophy. What a beautiful egg, the old man marveled, his voice filled with awe as he leaned closer for a better look. Lu Fan's heart raced, panic and desperation fueling his thoughts. No, he shouted, his voice breaking with emotion. That egg is my only chance to turn my life around? He clenched his fists, trembling with rage and helplessness. Just as Lu Fan prepared to lunge forward, a sudden cracking sound silenced everyone. The egg in the muscular man's hand splintered, fine cracks spreading rapidly across its glossy black surface. His grip tightened in shock, but before he could react further, the shell shattered completely. From within the fragments, something dark and swift shot out, moving too fast for their eyes to follow. The robbers froze, staring upward in disbelief. Against the dim light, a shadowy silhouette loomed above them, its form both majestic and terrifying. What is that thing? The woman stammered, her voice shaking. Lu Fan, however, stood rooted in place, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and wonder. It's a dragon, he whispered, almost in disbelief. The creature above them was unmistakable, a black dragon, its scales shimmering ominously. The dragon let out a guttural roar and dove toward the robbers with breathtaking speed. The old man, regaining his composure, quickly hurled a potion bottle at the creature. Get away, beast, he barked, his voice trembling with both anger and fear. The dragon tilted its body gracefully, dodging the bottle with an elegance that belied its size. As it maneuvered, the muscular man seized his chance, raising his fist to strike. But before he could swing, the dragon let out another ferocious roar, its aura exploding outward like a tidal wave. In an instant, the man's body was shredded to pieces, the force of the dragon's power leaving only his severed head tumbling to the ground. The old man's face turned pale as he stared in horror at the bloodied remains of his companion. What is this monster? He stammered, his voice barely audible. The black dragon's piercing gaze shifted to the old man, its eyes glowing with an ominous light. No, the old man shouted, stumbling backward. He turned frantically to the woman. Do something. Help me. Meanwhile, Lu Fan stood paralyzed, his mind reeling. Even freshly hatched, it's this strong, he murmured in disbelief. No wonder no one can tame a dragon. Their power is unmatched. The woman, overhearing Lu Fan's mutterings, snapped her head toward him. Wait, did you just say this is a dragon egg? She demanded, her voice tinged with panic. Before she could press further, a blood-curdling scream pierced the air. Her eyes darted toward the source, and her face twisted in terror as she saw blood spraying across the ground. The old man lay motionless in a crimson pool, his body mangled beyond recognition. The black dragon casually plucked pieces of eggshell from its teeth with its claws, as if the carnage it had caused was of no consequence. Its head rose slowly, and its unrelenting gaze locked onto the woman. Her entire body trembled uncontrollably as she took a step back, her expression frozen in pure horror. For the first time, she realized that she wasn't just facing a creature of immense power, she was standing before death itself. Lu Fan didn't hesitate as he shoved the woman aside, her startled cry echoing as she hit the ground with a thud. Standing firm, he glared at her, his voice cold and resolute. You dungeon robbers have no honor, he declared. For daring to steal what's rightfully mine, you've sealed your fate. The black dragon, sensing the shift in Lu Fan's demeanor, growled lowly, its gaze flicking between him and the robbers. As Lu Fan darted toward the dragon, it tensed, its wings twitching in readiness. But instead of attacking, Lu Fan raised his hand, and a brilliant light enveloped him as he activated his dragon-taming technique. The dragon froze, momentarily blinded by the radiant aura emanating from Lu Fan. Its eyes narrowed, both intrigued and bewildered. The woman, still on the ground, watched in shock, her voice trembling. Who are you? Lu Fan turned slightly, a sly grin tugging at his lips. You want to know who I am? He asked mockingly, his voice laced with confidence. I'm no ordinary summoner. I am a dragon tamer. The black dragon let out a deep, rumbling sound that echoed like thunder, its confusion giving way to submission. A system notification chimed in Lu Fan's mind. Black Dragon Covenant established. Skills unlocked, Dragon Claw, Dragon Fang Strike, Dragon's Inspiration. The woman's expression shifted from astonishment to terror. She scrambled to her knees, her voice cracking as she pleaded. Please, I didn't know it was a dragon egg. Spare me. Lu Fan's eyes darkened as he looked down at her. How many lives have you and your kind ruined with your schemes? He demanded, his voice like ice. I didn't, she stammered, but her words faltered under Lu Fan's piercing glare. Enough, he barked. His voice rang with finality as he gestured toward the black dragon. Go join your comrades in the afterlife. Without hesitation, the dragon lunged at the woman, its sleek form moving with deadly precision. Her screams cut through the air as she tried to flee, but it was futile. The sound of tearing flesh and the splatter of blood marked her end, her cries fading into silence. As dawn broke, the first rays of sunlight painted the sky with hues of gold and crimson. Lu Fan sat wearily on the ground, leaning against the black dragon's side as he tended to his injuries. He exhaled deeply, his breath fogging in the cool morning air. It's finally over, he murmured, relief washing over him. His moment of respite was interrupted by a rustling sound. Glancing to his side, Lu Fan noticed the black dragon rummaging through his bag with a curious expression. He raised an eyebrow, a faint smirk creeping onto his face. Hey, that's my stuff, he said, his tone softer now. What are you up to, you little glutton? The dragon let out a low rumble, nosing through the bag with unabashed curiosity. Lu Fan shook his head, a mix of amusement and exasperation flickering in his eyes. Despite the chaos that had unfolded, he couldn't help but feel a strange sense of camaraderie with the creature that had become his ally. Lu Fan carefully lifted the black dragon into his arms, marveling at the small yet powerful creature. I can't believe this is real, he murmured, his voice tinged with amazement. The dragon growled softly, its small wings flapping in irritation as Lu Fan raised it higher. Amused by its feistiness, he chuckled. So lively already, huh? You've got quite the personality. He paused, allowing his imagination to wander as he pictured himself soaring through the skies on the dragon's back once it matured. A grin spread across his face. With you, I've truly crossed the line between weak and strong, he said, his tone brimming with excitement. If you're this strong right after hatching, I can't even fathom how powerful you'll become after leveling up. Hugging the dragon close, Lu Fan's eyes gleamed with determination. Soon, the title of Dragon Tamer won't be mocked as the weakest class anymore, he declared. His mind raced as he began pondering a fitting name for his new companion. Should I call you Little Cobble? Or maybe Black Diamond? He mused aloud, glancing at the dragon for any reaction. The black dragon, however, seemed uninterested in his naming dilemma. Its gaze was fixed intently on the bandaged wound on Lu Fan's arm. Before he could decide on a name, the dragon suddenly leaned in and began licking the wound with its rough tongue. Startled, Lu Fan yelped, Hey! What are you doing? Cut it out. Before he could pull away, an intense crimson aura began to radiate from the dragon. The energy surged outward, forcing Lu Fan back as a sharp pain shot through his body. Gritting his teeth, he tried to shield himself, but his eyes widened in shock as he saw the dragon's form enveloped in the glowing red light. A humanoid visage emerged within the aura, adorned with curved horns and otherworldly features. As the energy dissipated, Lu Fan gasped, his eyes locking onto the figure that now stood where the dragon once was. Before him stood a striking red-haired woman, her horns gleaming and her fiery gaze filled with curiosity. Her figure was both imposing and graceful, with a commanding presence that left Lu Fan momentarily speechless. What in the world just happened? He stammered, struggling to process the scene before him. Wait, are you telling me you can transform into a human form too? The woman nodded with a calm expression, her movements fluid and deliberate. Still in disbelief, Lu Fan hastily pulled up the system interface, his fingers trembling as he accessed the black dragon's attributes. Meanwhile, the woman, still exploring her surroundings, seemed to be taking everything in with childlike curiosity. Lu Fan's eyes darted across the screen as the attributes loaded. His mouth fell open as he studied the details. As I thought, he murmured, his voice tinged with awe. Taming a dragon, it really unlocks every skill they possess. This is beyond anything I imagined. He looked up, meeting the dragon-turned woman's piercing gaze. Though his mind was reeling, a glimmer of excitement sparked within him. With you by my side, he muttered under his breath, the world won't stand a chance. Lu Fan began explaining the incredible potential of the skills unlocked through his bond with the black dragon. Dragon's inspiration, he remarked, is a game changer. It enhances both my strength and the dragon's, granting a 30% boost to all attributes and attack power. He marveled at the skill's potency, noting that it far surpassed the buffs provided by even the most skilled priests. He continued, Dragon Fang Strike isn't just a high-damage ability, it's devastating. And with Dragon Claw, I can channel the dragon's power directly into my own arm, delivering blows that rival her strength. Curiosity piqued, Lu Fan pulled up the black dragon's profile and clicked through her stats. As he scanned the information, his eyes widened in astonishment. Even if we disregard her being a newly hatched dragon, her base stats alone are leagues ahead, he muttered, a sense of awe creeping into his voice. Her attributes are 5 to 6 times higher than a normal human's. If I relied solely on my boosted abilities, I could still obliterate combat professions of the same level. When the system displayed her skills and detailed attributes, Lu Fan was momentarily speechless. Each of her attributes was in the triple digits, a staggering revelation. She's only a level 1 hatchling, he murmured, shaking his head in disbelief. Yet, with nearly 400 points in every attribute, she's stronger than even the most seasoned human fighters. Not even a human expert 20 levels higher would stand a chance against her. He clenched his fists, sensing the amplified strength coursing through his body. It's no wonder I feel this much stronger, he said, recalling the blood connection they shared. It doubles all my attributes directly. Dragons are on an entirely different level. Reflecting on the strongest hidden job classes, Lu Fan smirked. No matter how powerful they claim to be, nothing can compare to taming a dragon. Without a doubt, the Dragon Tamer is the most powerful hidden job class. While he stood proudly, basking in his newfound power, the black dragon was happily chewing on the remnants of her eggshells. Lu Fan chuckled as he observed her behavior. Even though you can take on a human form, it seems you haven't lost your dragon instincts, he remarked with a grin. As the dragon finished her feast, Lu Fan stroked his chin thoughtfully. I suppose I need to give you a proper name, he mused aloud. Gazing at her sleek black scales that glistened in the morning light, he considered her birth. Born in the darkest hour before dawn, how about Zioi? At the mention of the name, the dragon lifted her head and let out an excited howl. Lu Fan laughed. Looks like you like it, he said warmly. Admiring her, he muttered to himself, this treasure hunt may have been dangerous, but it was more than worth it. Glancing at Zioi, who was now sniffing at his bag, he grinned and asked, Are you hungry? Her enthusiastic howl was all the confirmation he needed, and he laughed again, feeling a rare moment of camaraderie with his newly hatched yet immensely powerful companion. Lu Fan decided it was time to hunt for monsters to satisfy Zioi's hunger. We can't just leave the mountains empty-handed, he reasoned, leading the way deeper into the forest. He added that this was an opportunity not only to feed Zioi but also to prepare for the upcoming university trials. The prestigious South Province Scholar Reward and a chance to enroll in the Dragon Kingdom's top university were within reach, but Lu Fan knew he couldn't let his guard down. Leveling up and honing my skills is the only way to secure my spot, he muttered, determination shining in his eyes. He motioned Zioi to follow, and the black dragon eagerly flew close behind. You'll love the monsters in the depths, Lu Fan teased. They'll taste much better than those eggshells. Zioi responded with a delighted howl, clearly thrilled by the idea. Their playful mood shifted abruptly when a thunderous roar echoed through the air. Lu Fan and Zioi froze, instinctively turning toward the source of the noise. Moments later, a pack of creatures emerged from the shadows, charging directly at them. Lu Fan quickly summoned the system's interface to identify their attackers. Plain hyenas, he read aloud, recognizing their ferocity. Unlike the bloodthirsty gray fox he had fought earlier, these creatures were stronger and more cunning, often hunting in coordinated packs. Lu Fan clenched his fists. In the past, these beasts would have been a nightmare, he mused, recalling how much effort it had taken to defeat a single gray fox. But that was before he could strategize, a powerful gust of wind swept past him. Lu Fan shielded his face, realizing the sudden force came from Zioi, who had already taken flight. She soared into the sky, her wings slicing through the air with ease. Lu Fan grinned. Looks like you're eager to fight, he said, his voice steady with newfound confidence. All right then, let's show them what we're made of. With Zioi circling overhead, Lu Fan charged forward, weapon at the ready. For the strongest dragon tamer and his companion, these rocky plains are no challenge at all, he declared boldly. High above, Zioi glided gracefully, her sharp eyes locked onto the pack of hyenas below. Her presence alone was enough to instill fear, but Lu Fan knew that the real show was just beginning. Zioi inhaled deeply, her chest glowing as she prepared to unleash an attack. Without hesitation, she activated her lava flame ability, releasing a torrent of scorching flames that engulfed the plain hyenas. The intense heat not only incinerated her foes but also restored her vitality with every use. Lu Fan watched in satisfaction as the system notifications appeared, 380 experience points earned for each hyena defeated. As Xiaoai continued to reduce the pack to ashes, Lu Fan's level climbed to 2, and Xiaoai advanced to level 3. Not bad, Lu Fan muttered, glancing at his glowing status screen. But he knew they needed something more challenging to gain significant experience. We'll need to hunt an elite monster if we want faster progress, he decided, calling out to Xiaoai. She paused her assault, glancing back at him. Forget the small fry. There's something bigger ahead, Lu Fan said, narrowing his eyes at the faint glimmer in the darkness. From the shadows emerged a hulking creature with razor-sharp claws and an aura of dominance. The monster's guttural growl reverberated through the air as it stepped forward, revealing its massive frame. A level 25 three-skull blood lion, Lu Fan identified, his voice steady but laced with anticipation. An elite leader. Normally, it'd take a team of hunters to bring one down. But we're no ordinary team, are we? He said, smirking at Xiaoai. She let out a fierce howl in agreement. The blood lion snarled, activating its roar skill. The powerful sound wave swept across the battlefield, accompanied by a gust of wind that sent loose rocks flying. Lu Fan gritted his teeth as the lion's stats surged, boosting its attack and defense significantly. The creature wasted no time preparing its next move, Triple Flame. Flames coiled around its 3 heads, forming glowing orbs of fire that threatened to unleash devastation in multiple bursts. Lu Fan acted swiftly. Xiaoai, we need to interrupt that skill, he commanded. Xiaoai growled affirmatively, flames spiraling around her as her aura intensified. The fiery dragoness transformed into a blazing whirlwind, her presence overwhelming the area with heat and pressure. Meanwhile, Lu Fan crouched low, his gaze fixed on the lion. As the beast focused on charging its skill, Lu Fan seized the opening. With a burst of energy, he leapt into the air, spinning as he ascended. Behind him, Xiaoai's fiery whirlwind surged forward, a burning tempest aimed directly at the blood lion. The two worked in perfect synchronization. Xiaoai's whirlwind collided with the blood lion, breaking its focus and scattering the charged flames. Simultaneously, Lu Fan descended from above, his weapon glowing with energy as he aimed for the lion's vulnerable spot. This is how a dragon tamer fights, he shouted, striking with precision while Xiaoai roared, readying her next attack. As Xiaoai's fiery whirlwind intensified, Lu Fan smirked and remarked, "Let me try something new first." The flames around Xiaoai flared even brighter as she activated her dragon true shape skill. With a thunderous roar, she emerged from the fiery vortex, her form more imposing than before. Her scales gleamed ominously as she charged forward, unleashing her skill mighty jaw strike with terrifying speed. She clamped her powerful jaws onto the 3-skull blood lion, tearing into its flesh and inflicting relentless bleeding damage. The attack disrupted the lion's triple flame skill, scattering its charged energy into harmless embers. "Well done, Xiaoai," Lu Fan shouted, his voice filled with admiration. Without hesitation, he seized the moment to strike. He gathered dragon energy into his weapon and activated Dragon Fang Strike, delivering a devastating blow that radiated power. The impact sent the massive blood lion crashing to the ground with a pained roar, its body riddled with deep injuries. Lu Fan somersaulted backward, landing with practiced ease as he surveyed the battlefield. The once mighty 3-skull blood lion lay motionless, its breath shallow. "It's over," Lu Fan declared confidently as Xiaoai descended beside him, her wings folding gracefully. Moments later, a familiar chime rang in Lu Fan's ears. The system displayed their victory, 23,790 experience points earned each. Lu Fan grinned as he leveled up to level 4, while Xiaoai surged ahead to level 9. "Elite monsters sure are worth the effort," Lu Fan remarked, impressed by the rapid level gains. "Just one of these can boost us by several levels. If we keep this up, we'll be unstoppable." As he caught his breath, the treasure map system activated with a soft hum. A notification appeared, revealing a new treasure map. "Another one?" Lu Fan muttered, his curiosity piqued. The map's details hinted at an exclusive reward for dragon tamers. "Looks like we've got a hunt ahead of us, Xiaoai." Xiaoai howled enthusiastically, her tail swishing with excitement. Without wasting time, Lu Fan motioned her to follow as they headed toward their next adventure. Meanwhile, deep within the rocky plains, hidden among towering boulders, 3 figures stood quietly. A young woman with sharp eyes turned to the older man beside her. "Uncle Ji, are we really going to let this opportunity slip by? Something like this doesn't come around often." The man, Sun Ji, a seasoned warrior, let out a deep sigh. "It's not about what we want," he replied gravely. "There's nothing we can do right now. Entry to Secret Realm required at least 5 people. Unfortunately, their group didn't have enough people. He suggested that Kier return to Zhonghai City to gather reinforcements, but Kier immediately shook his head in refusal. Even with my speed, Kier argued, a round trip would take an entire day. By the time I'm back, the secret realm will already have vanished. Qin Kuei, a young woman of an unknown combat class, sighed heavily. The Fortune's secret realm appears randomly, and its rewards far surpass ordinary dungeons. But it only exists for 24 hours. We definitely won't make it in time. Her frustration was evident as she kicked a loose stone on the ground. Sun Ji, attempting to console her, said, Qin Kuei, there's no need to be so worried. With your abilities, once you get into one of the top 10 academies, you'll have plenty of opportunities like this. Qin Kuei crossed her arms and responded, I know that. But this realm's rewards, it's such a waste to let it slip away. Her voice trailed off, disappointment etched on her face. Suddenly, Sun Ji's expression hardened. His sharp instincts detected movement nearby. Someone's here, he growled, quickly stepping in front of Qin Kuei with his weapon drawn. Kier mirrored his actions, both of them bracing for a confrontation. From behind a nearby rock, a figure casually emerged. Lu Fan appeared with a disarming smile, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. Relax, he said lightly. I'm just passing through. Sun Ji scrutinized him from head to toe, noting the dirt and dust covering Lu Fan's attire. You don't look like you belong here. This isn't where a typical material hunter should be, he remarked skeptically. Before Sun Ji could say more, Qin Kuei raised her hand to signal him to stand down. She stepped forward and introduced herself with a polite smile. I'm Qin Kuei, from the Qin family of Zhonghai City, she began. This might seem a little abrupt, but I have a proposal for you. Lu Fan raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Go on. Qin Kuei continued, her tone earnest. We need one more person to activate the Fortune's secret realm. If you agree to join us, you won't have to do anything inside the realm. Just help us enter. For your trouble, we're offering a reward of 100,000 dragon coins. Lu Fan's steps faltered as he heard the offer, his interest piqued. 100,000 dragon coins? He repeated, as if confirming what he just heard. Inside, his mind raced. The Fortune's secret realm? Even the Qin family from Zhonghai City, one of the wealthiest families around, is desperate to enter. If they're this eager, the rewards must be extraordinary. Qin Kuei nodded, sensing his hesitation. Yes, 100,000. And we'll handle everything else inside? Lu Fan tilted his head, considering the proposition. That's quite the generous offer. Why don't you tell me more about this secret realm? Lu Fan nodded as Qin Kuei clarified that they just needed enough people to meet the requirements of the realm. She emphasized that Lu Fan wouldn't need to lift a finger during the exploration and could still walk away with the promised 100,000 dragon coins. As the portal to the secret realm shimmered to life, Sun Ji couldn't hide his excitement. Opportunities like this don't come often, he urged. Let's get moving before it's too late. Lu Fan, however, remained composed. Money isn't what I'm after, he stated calmly, surprising everyone. If we're going to work together, let's allocate the rewards based on contribution. Kier blinked in disbelief, stepping forward. So you're saying you want to split the rewards depending on how much each of us contributes? Are you serious? Lu Fan nodded. Exactly. Qin Kuei raised an eyebrow, scrutinizing him. Our average level is around 20, she pointed out. You look like you're significantly weaker than us. Are you confident in your skills, or is this just arrogance? Her skepticism didn't seem to faze Lu Fan. Instead, he extended his hand toward her. You'll find out soon enough, he replied with a small grin. Qin Kuei shook his hand after a brief pause and announced to the group, all right, it's settled. Let's head in. As the group prepared to enter the secret realm, Xiaoai remained hidden within Lu Fan's system interface, curled up and sleeping soundly. Lu Fan muttered under his breath, it'd only cause trouble if I revealed her here. Better to wait until I've secured the secret realm's rewards. Moments after stepping into the mysterious realm, Sun Ji couldn't help but glance over at Lu Fan. His sharp eyes quickly noticed something peculiar. You're not carrying any equipment, he remarked. Are you planning to fight barehanded? Lu Fan smirked, amused by the observation. Inwardly, he scoffed at the notion that he was unprepared. Slowly, he extended his hand, and a fiery aura began to swirl around his palm. In an instant, the flames coalesced into a weapon, his newly acquired ink dragon deer ambler sword, an epic-quality blade shimmering with a deep, obsidian sheen and intricate dragon carvings along its hilt. Everyone stared, stunned by the dramatic reveal. I didn't feel the need to show it earlier, Lu Fan explained casually, giving the weapon a quick flourish. I just defeated the three-skull blood lion not long ago. Triggered an advanced treasure map and finally upgraded my weapon. No more relying on that dull starter cleaver. Sun Ji's gaze lingered on the sword, his expression a mix of curiosity and respect. Not bad, he admitted. Looks like you're more prepared than I thought. Qin Kuei crossed her arms, watching Lu Fan with renewed interest. Well then, she said, a sly smile playing on her lips. Let's see if you can live up to that sword in this realm. Sun Ji's eyes widened at the sight of Lu Fan's sword. He couldn't help but marvel at its craftsmanship, noting its extraordinary design. That's quite the weapon, he remarked, his tone laced with curiosity. Judging by your age, I thought you might be a material hunter or perhaps a newly transferred student. Before Lu Fan could respond, Kier interjected with a sharp tone. What does it matter, Sun Ji? We're here to cooperate. Besides, if he's up to anything suspicious, I'll make sure to deal with him myself. Her confidence caught Lu Fan's attention, but before he could say anything, Sun Ji suddenly jumped back with a start. A decayed, rotting hand emerged from the ground near his feet. His eyes darted down just in time to see a level 15 decaying zombie clawing its way out of the earth. Moments later, more zombies began to surface, their grotesque forms staggering toward the group. Sun Ji, watch out! Qin Kuei shouted, her voice tinged with urgency. Sun Ji readied his weapon, but before he could act, a figure leapt in front of him. Xiaojia, a level 20 knight, raised his shield and charged at the nearest zombies, slamming into them with enough force to send their brittle forms stumbling backward. Nice work, Xiaojia. Sun Ji called out, his voice filled with gratitude. Kier, meanwhile, had already drawn her crossbow. With practiced ease, she fired a volley of bolts, each one finding its mark and taking down a zombie in quick succession. Sun Ji joined the fray, his blade cleaving through the decaying creatures. The two of them, a level 28 warrior and a level 23 rogue, made quick work of the initial wave of zombies, their coordination flawless. From the sidelines, Lu Fan observed the group's dynamic with a faint smirk. A warrior, a rogue, and a knight holding the gate, solid team composition, he muttered to himself. His gaze lingered on Sun Ji, noting his strength and precision. Especially with Sun Ji nearing his second-class advancement. They're a capable team. Meanwhile, Qin Kuei stepped forward, gripping her staff tightly as she began chanting under her breath. A radiant, golden aura surrounded her, illuminating the dark surroundings as she unleashed her skill, Holy Light Star Rain. Brilliant beams of light rained down upon the battlefield, striking the zombies with unerring accuracy. The holy energy burned through their decayed flesh, reducing them to ash in moments. The spell's overwhelming power turned the tide of the skirmish, leaving nothing but scorched ground where the zombies once stood. Lu Fan raised an eyebrow, impressed. Not bad, he mused, his hand resting casually on the hilt of his sword. It seems this group has more to offer than I initially thought. As the Holy Light Star Rain skill activated, radiant energy coalesced above, showering the battlefield with beams of starlight. The divine rain dealt devastating holy damage to the undead while simultaneously mending the wounds of nearby allies. The sheer brilliance of the spell lit up the area, pushing back the oppressive gloom. Qin Kuei turned to Lu Fan, explaining, this is one of the unique traits of my class. The Holy Light Mage, a hidden class, specializes in both offense and healing. Though its damage output isn't as high as a typical mage, and its healing capabilities can't match a priest, it provides a good balance of both. Lu Fan nodded in understanding, his sharp eyes catching the details of her stats. A level 13 Holy Light Mage, huh, he remarked. Another hidden class. And holy damage, it's perfect for dealing with these zombies. Before their conversation could continue, a sudden tremor rippled through the ground. The unexpected quake startled the group, and everyone instinctively braced themselves. The unsettling sound of shuffling and groaning filled the air, growing louder with each passing second. Lu Fan's expression hardened as he spotted the source of the disturbance. A wave of decaying zombies began shambling toward them, but their ragged movements hinted at something far more dangerous. An elite monster has been triggered, he called out, his tone firm. And it sounds like it's not alone? As if on cue, multiple level 20 bloodthirsty zombies burst from the ground, their grotesque forms towering over the regular undead. Their bloodshot eyes gleamed with malevolence, and their movements were faster and more aggressive. Sun Ji, ever the strategist, quickly assessed the situation. An elite wave, he muttered grimly. He turned to Kier and barked orders. Kier, stick with Qin Kuei and Lu Fan. Protect them at all costs. Without missing a beat, he called out to Xiaojia, his voice steady but urgent. Xiaojia, with me. We'll hold the front line. We can't let these rotting monsters break through. Xiaojia adjusted his shield, his expression determined as he stepped into position beside Sun Ji. The two braced themselves as the horde surged forward, ready to meet the wave of elite zombies head-on. Kier, meanwhile, notched another bolt in her crossbow, standing guard near Qin Kuei, her eyes scanning for any threats that might slip through. Xiaojia braced himself at the front line, shield raised high, while Sun Ji stood close behind, swinging his sword in a calculated arc. With a powerful leap, Sun Ji activated his skill, Full Moon Slash, delivering a gleaming crescent strike that slammed into one of the bloodthirsty zombies, slicing deeply into its grotesque form. Xiaojia followed up with a fierce lunge, plunging his blade into another zombie's chest. His confidence wavered, however, when he tried to pull the sword free. It wouldn't budge. Panic flickered across his face as he noticed the zombie's rotting flesh writhing unnaturally, clinging tightly to the embedded weapon. Why won't it come out? Xiaojia muttered, his voice filled with frustration and disbelief. The bloodthirsty zombies, undeterred, retaliated by activating their skill, Corpse Poison. The malicious ability caused any physical attack against them to infect the attacker, leading to a steady loss of health while the zombies themselves regenerated. Xiaojia's eyes widened in horror as his own health began to drain, even as he struggled to free his weapon. Lu Fan, watching from a distance, quickly recognized the zombie's sinister tactic. "It's corpse poison," he muttered under his breath. A priest's purify skill is needed to dispel it, but Qin Kuei's class doesn't have the ability. Xiaojia's panic deepened when the zombie's decaying flesh slithered up the blade and began grasping at his hand. He called out desperately, "Sun Ji! Help me!" Sun Ji, meanwhile, encountered the same grim fate. The zombie he struck had absorbed his sword into its putrid mass, refusing to relinquish it. Realizing the futility of the struggle, Sun Ji abandoned his weapon. "Xiaojia, let go of your sword now," he barked, his voice edged with urgency. He lunged forward, shoving Xiaojia away from the creature just as it reached for him. "Kier!" Sun Ji shouted, turning to the rogue. "Get up here and cover us." But before Kier could react, a calm voice interjected, "There's no need for that." The group turned to see Lu Fan stepping forward, his expression unreadable. Sun Ji frowned, surprised and skeptical. "What are you doing?" he demanded. "Leave this to me," Lu Fan replied confidently, his steps measured as he moved toward the hulking zombies. The bloodthirsty zombie nearest him suddenly let out a guttural roar, its grotesque body swelling as it prepared to charge. Its menacing presence seemed to grow larger with each thundering step. Sun Ji's instincts kicked in, and he lunged to grab Lu Fan, shouting, "Are you out of your mind? Get back before you're killed." But Lu Fan remained unfazed. He gently brushed off Sun Ji's hand and continued forward, his eyes fixed on the grotesque monster. His demeanor radiated a quiet yet unshakable resolve. "Let me show you what I can do," Lu Fan said, his voice steady as he prepared to confront the charging zombie head-on. Lu Fan's sword ignited with a blazing aura as he swung it in a precise arc, slicing deeply into the bloodthirsty zombie's grotesque form. The fiery energy seared through the creature, halting its advance. Sun Ji, Xiaojia, and Kier could only watch in astonishment as Lu Fan unleashed a relentless flurry of strikes. Each swing of his sword carved through the horde, creating dazzling arcs of fire that cut down the zombies with devastating efficiency. Qin Kuei stood still, her wide eyes fixed on Lu Fan. Awe reflected in her gaze as she observed his effortless movements and extraordinary power. Within moments, the battlefield was cleared. The charred remains of the zombies lay scattered across the ground. Lu Fan, breathing steadily, turned his attention to the others. He approached Sun Ji, who was still too stunned to speak, and extended the warrior's retrieved sword. "Here," Lu Fan said calmly, placing it back in Sun Ji's hands. "You can't afford to hesitate. Keep moving forward." Sun Ji stared at his weapon, then at Lu Fan, his mind racing. Finally, he managed to stammer, How strong are you? That kind of power, there's no way you're just a newly transferred student." Lu Fan shrugged, the fiery aura around him dissipating. "I'm level 14, he replied plainly, his tone matter-of-fact. "I came to the Stone Plains to train for the great exam." There was no trace of deception in his words. Qin Kuei's head snapped up at the mention of the great exam. "You're taking the great exam too?" she asked, her voice laced with surprise. Internally, she was reeling. A level 14 student, but his attack power outclasses even Sun Ji, who's level 28. How is that possible? Before anyone could say more, a guttural roar shattered the silence. Another bloodthirsty zombie emerged from the shadows, its decayed body radiating malice as it charged toward Qin Kuei. The sudden appearance froze her in place, panic flickering in her eyes. "Qin Kuei, watch out!" Kier shouted as she darted forward, her crossbow at the ready. But just as she moved to intercept, a blur shot past her. It was Lu Fan. In an instant, he closed the distance between himself and the zombie, moving faster than anyone could react. With a decisive thrust, he drove his sword into the creature's chest. The impact sent the zombie hurtling backward, its massive frame crashing into a nearby wall. Kier lowered her weapon, staring in disbelief. "He's faster than me?" she murmured under her breath. Qin Kuei exhaled shakily, her hands clutching her staff as she tried to steady herself. Meanwhile, Sun Ji exchanged a glance with Xiaojia, who could only shake his head in stunned silence. Lu Fan withdrew his sword and turned back to the group. "Let's not waste time," he said coolly. "We still have more ground to cover." As Lu Fan pulled his sword from the fallen zombie, he observed calmly, "The level of these zombies is only going to increase as we go further into the village." With a quick flick of his wrist, he sent the blood dripping from his blade splattering to the ground. He turned to the group and declared with confidence, "I'll take the front row. Does anyone have a problem with that?" His bold statement left the group momentarily speechless. Qin Kuei's mind raced as she glanced at him, her expression a mix of curiosity and intrigue. Could he be the person rumored in Zhonghai City? She wondered silently. Breaking the silence, Qin Kuei addressed him. "All right, classmate Lu Fan," she began, her tone steady. "We'll rely on you then. You and Sun Ji will handle the front line while I tend to Xiaojia's injuries. Kier will take the rear for support and cover. If the Mystic Realm Guardian is anywhere, it should be further inside the village." Lu Fan glanced back at her, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Just call me Lu Fan," he said lightly before turning his focus forward. He strode ahead without hesitation, calling over his shoulder, "Let's keep moving. We don't have time to waste." Sun Ji remained quiet, still trying to process what he had just witnessed. Kier, meanwhile, was busy helping Xiaojia, who groaned in discomfort as he leaned on her for support. As the group moved deeper into the secret realm, Qin Kuei's thoughts lingered on Lu Fan. She murmured to herself, could he really be the rumored dragon tamer? Shaking her head slightly, she dismissed the idea. No, that's impossible. If he were a dragon tamer, it's supposed to be one of the weakest hidden classes. Their trek deeper into the realm was interrupted when another bloodthirsty zombie came crashing face first to the ground, its decaying form stirring up a cloud of dust. The group pressed on, eventually reaching the center of the mysterious village. The area was eerily quiet, but the tension was palpable as they realized they were completely surrounded by zombies. Lu Fan's sharp eyes darted to Xiaojia, who was visibly struggling. "Qin Kuei," he said, his voice cutting through the tense atmosphere, "your abilities aren't enough to dispel the corpse poison. His condition isn't going to improve without the right cure." Qin Kuei clenched her fists, frustration flickering across her face as she glanced at Xiaojia's pale complexion. The weight of the situation pressed heavily on the group, but Lu Fan's unwavering demeanor provided a sliver of hope amidst the rising danger. The group's situation grew more dire with each passing moment. Qin Kuei's expression was grim as she reminded everyone, "The teleportation gate won't open until we defeat the Mystic Realm Guardian. We don't have much time. If we delay any longer, Xiaojia might succumb to the corpse poison." Her voice faltered, the unspoken fear lingering in the air. If Xiaojia died, he could turn into a zombie and become a threat to them all. Kier, visibly anxious, scanned the village. "Something's not right," she said. "We've searched the entire area, but there's no sign of the Mystic Realm Guardian." Nearby, Sun Ji was visibly fatigued, sweat trickling down his face as he fought off another wave of zombies. Some managed to creep up behind him unnoticed, their hollow groans growing louder. Despite his weakened state, Xiaojia noticed the threat and forced himself to call out. "Sun Ji! Behind you," he warned, his voice strained. But as the words left his mouth, his legs gave out, and he collapsed to the ground. "Xiaojia!" Qin Kuei cried, rushing to his side. Panic flashed in her eyes as she tried to help him up. "Stay with us. Don't give up." At that moment, something unusual caught her attention. A faint glint of light shimmered near one of the crumbling buildings. Alarmed, Qin Kuei's gaze snapped to the structure just as it began to move. The ruined building shifted, its shattered walls coalescing into a massive figure. With a horrifying creak of metal and stone, the form revealed itself, a towering iron-skinned zombie. Sun Ji's body tensed as he gripped his weapon tighter. "That's it," he shouted. "The Mystic Realm Guardian is here." The colossal creature let out a guttural growl, its voice chillingly low. Fresh flesh, it rumbled, its grotesque form advancing toward the group. It wasn't alone. Several smaller zombies had fused into its body, their distorted faces leering from its chest and shoulders, muttering and snarling incoherently. Kier stepped forward, her crossbow already in hand. "Get ready. This is it," she yelled, steeling herself for the battle ahead. The group braced themselves, knowing that their survival hinged on defeating this monstrous guardian. Lu Fan's sharp gaze shifted to Xiaojia's worsening condition, his breathing shallow and skin pallid. Observing the transformation in the iron-skinned zombie, Lu Fan's suspicions solidified. He raised his voice to address the group. "The corpse poison has reached a critical point. That thing is being drawn to Xiaojia. If we don't act quickly, it'll absorb him and grow even stronger." Sun Ji reacted without hesitation, dashing forward to confront the iron-skinned zombie. He leaped into the air and unleashed his moonlight slash, the blade shimmering with energy as it struck the creature's metallic frame. But to his shock, the zombie remained unharmed, not even a scratch marring its hardened surface. What the? How is this possible? Sun Ji muttered, stepping back in disbelief. Without missing a beat, Lu Fan advanced, his fiery aura flaring to life as he gripped his blade tightly. There's no time for trial and error, he said, his tone firm. If we let it continue, we'll be overwhelmed. He aimed for the iron-skinned zombie's head, his blade slicing downward with precision and strength. Flames erupted on contact, but the massive zombie barely flinched. It let out a low growl, its body shimmering briefly as its steel skin ability activated. The creature's defense surged, making its body nearly impervious to attacks. This thing's defense has increased by at least 40%, Lu Fan muttered under his breath. He calculated quickly, his mind racing. We don't have time for small attacks. We need to take it down fast. Meanwhile, the zombie's malevolent gaze locked onto Xiaojia. With a guttural snarl, it began lumbering toward him. Its body glowed faintly as it activated assimilation absorption, a chilling skill that allowed it to fuse with a target, increasing its own power and size. The ground trembled with its every step, the ominous pull of its ability drawing closer to Xiaojia. Not on my watch, Lu Fan growled, determination blazing in his eyes. He dashed toward the creature, releasing a surge of energy that rippled through the air. Turning to Qin Kuei, he called out, use your holy magic. I'll create an opening. Sun Ji, you protect Xiaojia at all costs, don't let anything get near him. As Lu Fan charged, he activated the special power of his weapon, the Ink Dragon Deer Antler Sword. A surge of energy coursed through him as he triggered dragon blood armorization. His arms began to transform, the skin hardening into scaled armor as his hands morphed into massive dragon claws, radiating raw power. The air around him sizzled with heat, and his movements became a blur as he closed the distance between himself and the iron-skinned zombie. The creature growled, its deep, guttural voice muttering, fresh flesh. It lunged at Xiaojia, but Lu Fan intercepted it, slamming his dragonized claw into the zombie's chest. The impact reverberated through the village, forcing the creature back momentarily. Qin Kuei! Now's your chance! Lu Fan shouted, holding the creature at bay as his fiery aura intensified, ready to strike again. Qin Kuei nodded firmly at Lu Fan's command, raising her staff as a brilliant glow enveloped her. With unwavering focus, she began chanting her spell. Golden radiance illuminated the battlefield as she unleashed holy light star rain, cascading beams of light descending onto the iron-skinned zombie. Simultaneously, Lu Fan tightened his grip, the transformation of his arm into a dragon claw complete. The black dragon's essence surged through him, amplifying his strength and fueling his fiery strikes. With a determined roar, Lu Fan lunged at the iron-skinned zombie, his dragon claw slashing through its hardened exterior. Each blow struck with such force that cracks began to form in the zombie's impenetrable armor. The iron-skinned zombie howled in agony, its grotesque voice echoing as it began to stagger. Fresh flesh, it growled repeatedly, its voice growing fainter as Qin Kuei's holy light relentlessly sapped its vitality. Kair, observing the scene, gasped in shock as the zombie's massive body started to disintegrate, chunks of its metallic form crumbling to ash. Sun Ji, standing nearby, was rendered speechless. When Lu Fan turned to the group, he calmly remarked, this thing's strength relied on its fusion absorption ability. The larger it became, the more unstable its structure was. Its core, its true body, was buried within. Sun Ji muttered in awe, I've been around the Qin family long enough to meet countless powerful figures, but Lu Fan, you are on a completely different level. You have to be a hidden professional? As the zombie's outer shell continued to collapse, an eerie sight emerged, a smaller, grotesque figure hidden within the ruins of the larger body. Near what had once been its eye, a tiny, deformed zombie revealed itself, its mouth trembling as it whimpered, flesh, must have flesh. Its ghastly appearance sent shivers through the group. Qin Kuei pointed to the smaller form. That's it, the main body, she exclaimed. Before anyone could react, Lu Fan dashed forward in a blur. The tiny zombie shrieked in alarm as Lu Fan's dragon claw descended upon it. You're not escaping, he growled, his voice filled with authority. The claw released a blazing aura as it struck, engulfing the core zombie in searing flames. Burn, Lu Fan commanded, his tone cold and resolute. The tiny zombie screeched as the flames consumed it, writhing in agony. With a final, desperate roar, its form disintegrated entirely. As Lu Fan landed back on the ground, the remnants of the iron-skinned zombie's body erupted in a thunderous explosion, shaking the area. Dust and ash filled the air, and the battlefield grew quiet. Kair was the first to break the silence. Was that it? Did we really just defeat the Mystic Realm Guardian? She asked, her voice a mixture of disbelief and relief. Qin Kuei stared at Lu Fan, her staff trembling slightly in her hand. He really did it, she murmured, her expression one of awe as her gaze lingered on the smoldering remains of the once dreaded zombie. Qin Kuei's cautious gaze lingered on Lu Fan as she thought. I've never seen a skill with such overwhelming power, especially one that could bring down a level 20 boss so decisively, she said, her tone tinged with both awe and curiosity. Just who are you, Lu Fan? The remains of the fallen iron-skinned zombie shimmered and dissolved, leaving behind a gleaming treasure chest. The chest bore intricate carvings, signaling its rarity, and a faint aura of energy radiated from it. It was unmistakably the reward of defeating the Mystic Realm Guardian. Qin Kuei stepped forward and called out to Lu Fan. We'll follow the agreed-upon arrangement and distribute the items fairly, she said firmly, glancing at the others. Her expression softened as she added, before, we underestimated you and spoke without understanding your strength. I hope you can forgive us for our earlier rashness. Sun Ji, standing to the side, gave a sheepish laugh. Honestly, with your power, Lu Fan, you could have cleared this hidden realm all on your own. Right now, it feels like we're just along for the ride. Lu Fan waved off the praise with a modest smile. You give me too much credit, Sun Ji. As for the distribution, that's for Qin Kuei to decide, he replied. When Qin Kuei opened the chest, a golden light momentarily spilled out, drawing everyone's attention. Lu Fan's eyes narrowed as he studied the contents. His brows furrowed slightly, betraying his unease. The chest contained a strength potion, which temporarily boosted physical power upon consumption, an antidote potion capable of neutralizing corpse poison, and a pair of morning bracers, which glimmered faintly with enchantments but lacked the grandeur expected from such a dangerous realm. Kair, peering over Qin Kuei's shoulder, frowned. Is that it? Those are all the rewards from a level 20 mystic realm? She asked, her disappointment clear. Sun Ji scratched his head, his expression mirroring her sentiment. For all that effort, this feels underwhelming, he muttered. Qin Kuei, maintaining her composure, handed the antidote potion to Sun Ji. Quickly, give this to Xiao Jia. He needs it immediately to counteract the corpse poison, she instructed. As Sun Ji rushed to comply, Lu Fan's gaze remained fixed on the chest, his expression thoughtful. It doesn't add up, he said quietly, drawing everyone's attention. A level 20 Mystic Realm Guardian should yield far better rewards than this. There's something missing. His words hung in the air, a mixture of suspicion and intrigue. Qin Kuei looked at him, her brows furrowing slightly. What do you mean? Lu Fan didn't answer right away. Instead, he scanned their surroundings, his sharp gaze probing the shadows. Let's just say that a realm of this level rarely gives up all its secrets so easily, he murmured. We might not be done here just yet. Qin Kuei approached Lu Fan, holding out the morning bracers with a determined expression. These belong to you, she said firmly. Along with the strength and antidote potions. You earned them, so take them all? Lu Fan accepted the items after a moment of hesitation, nodding in acknowledgement. The Qin family certainly knows how to honor their agreements, he remarked, his tone neutral but appreciative. Meanwhile, Sun Ji was preoccupied helping Xiao Jia drink the antidote potion, gently urging him. How are you feeling now? Is it working? He asked, concern etched on his face. As Lu Fan equipped the morning bracers, their faint glow signaled their activation. He tucked the remaining potions into his inventory, his mind preoccupied with the peculiarities of the realm. Just then, Qin Kuei broke the silence, her brows furrowed in thought. It's strange, she began, glancing around the village. We defeated the Guardian, but there's still no sign of a portal appearing. Kair chimed in, glancing at the ruined surroundings. Should we spread out and search? Maybe it's hidden somewhere nearby, she suggested, though her voice carried a note of uncertainty. Lu Fan's expression darkened, and he shook his head. No, he cautioned, his tone firm. Don't wander off yet. Something isn't right. His gaze flickered as he summoned his system interface, scanning the status of the realm. His eyes sharpened as he read the notification, Realm Progress, Incomplete. His voice cut through the group's growing unease. The iron-skinned zombie wasn't the final boss, he announced, his tone leaving no room for doubt. Sun Ji turned to him, bewildered. How can you be so sure? Did you find something? Before Lu Fan could respond, Qin Kuei's face paled, and she stepped forward, her eyes fixed on the village outskirts. Wait, she said, her voice trembling slightly. I sense it now. As a holy light mage, I can detect lingering dark energy. Something sinister is close. She gestured toward the edge of the village, where a murky fog was beginning to creep in from the direction of Grief Lakeside. The fog seemed alive, pulsating with an unnatural aura. Qin Kuei pointed toward it, her voice low and tense. It's there. Whatever it is, it's watching us. As Sun Ji approached the lake's edge, he peered into the murky waters, speaking aloud to break the tension. If Qin Kuei says the boss is near, then it has to be around here somewhere. He scanned the surroundings, unaware of the ominous presence lurking beneath the surface. The dark figure submerged in the water stirred, and multiple eyes on its tentacle-like limbs snapped open, glinting with eerie light. Lu Fan, attuned to the subtle shift in the atmosphere, suddenly tensed. "Get ready, it's coming," he called out, his voice sharp with urgency. The group barely had time to react before massive, tentacled appendages surged out of the lake, dripping with water and brimming with writhing eyes. The entity's entire presence was shrouded in mystery, no name, no level, nothing to indicate what they were dealing with. Sun Ji's expression hardened as he stepped forward, gripping his weapon tightly. "This has to be the final boss," he declared, his resolve unwavering. The creature struck first, one of its colossal limbs lashing out. Sun Ji braced himself, using his skill to create a barrier against the attack. "Everyone, take cover," he shouted, gritting his teeth. The force of the strike proved overwhelming, and with a loud crash, Sun Ji was sent flying, slamming into the ground. The group gasped in alarm as they rushed to check on him. Before they could regroup, Qin Kuei froze as a suffocating presence loomed behind her. She turned just in time to see one of the massive, grotesque arms descending toward her. Fear rooted her to the spot, and all she could do was raise her staff in a futile attempt to shield herself. Her eyes squeezed shut, bracing for the inevitable. Suddenly, a blur of movement cut through the chaos. Lu Fan darted forward with incredible speed, grabbing Qin Kuei and pulling her out of harm's way just as the monster's limb closed in. The force of his rescue sent them skidding across the ground, his boots scraping against the earth as he came to a halt. Qin Kuei's face flushed with a mix of shock and embarrassment as she realized what had just happened. "Are you okay?" Lu Fan asked, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. Qin Kuei could only nod, her words caught in her throat. The rest of the group quickly surrounded them, visibly relieved that she was unharmed. But their respite was short-lived. Kair, who had been scanning the area, suddenly froze in place, her expression stricken. "It's not over," she whispered, trembling as a cold, oppressive aura washed over them. The monstrous entity began to emerge fully from the lake, its towering form dwarfing everything around it. The ground shook with each step it took as it advanced onto land. The group stared in stunned silence, their weapons clenched tightly. As the water slid off its grotesque form, something even more horrifying was revealed, a chained woman embedded in its torso, her eyes closed as if in a deep slumber. The sight sent chills through the group, and they instinctively stepped back. "What is that thing?" Sun Ji murmured, his voice barely audible over the sound of the creature's heavy, thunderous movements. The entity revealed itself as a level 25 grieving specter, its ominous presence radiating a sinister energy. Kair's voice trembled as she confirmed, "This is the real boss." Sun Ji stepped forward, positioning himself between the specter and Xiao Jia. "Stay behind me. I'll hold it off," he instructed firmly. Xiao Jia, still weak but determined, shook his head. "I can still fight. I won't just stand here and do nothing." "Stop being stubborn." Sun Ji barked, frustration evident in his tone. "You've just recovered. Leave the fighting to us." As the argument unfolded, Lu Fan stepped in, his tone calm yet commanding. "Sun Ji, Xiao Jia, focus on holding the line. I'll handle the boss. If it's a zombie, there's only one way to win, I'll destroy its main body." The grieving specter let out a deafening screech, her spectral form glowing with a sickly light. With a sinister wave, she activated corpse chi envelopment, releasing a toxic aura that spread through the realm. The air grew heavy, and the group felt an immediate drain on their strength, their attributes reduced by 20%. Xiao Jia winced in pain as the corrosive energy gnawed at his weakened body. Lu Fan, undeterred by the oppressive aura, charged forward with unyielding determination. As one of the specter's grotesque, clawed hands lashed toward him, he sidestepped nimbly, evading the strike with precision. His eyes locked onto the chains binding the specter's main body, and with a quick leap, he landed atop them, using the chains as a makeshift path. The grieving specter screeched in surprise, her multiple eyes narrowing as she noticed Lu Fan's bold maneuver. "He's coming straight for the core," she hissed in disbelief. From below, Qin Kuei shouted, her voice urgent. "Lu Fan, watch out for the chains. They're dangerous." Before Lu Fan could respond, the specter activated Chain Lash, her chains springing to life with a sharp, metallic crack. The heavy links surged toward him like serpents, their sheer force threatening to crush anything in their path. Lu Fan's eyes widened as he narrowly dodged the first strike, but the second caught him off guard, slamming into his side. The impact knocked him off the chains, sending him plummeting toward the ground. The grieving specter howled triumphantly, her chains whipping through the air in a deadly frenzy. The others gasped in alarm as the massive, thrashing chains turned toward them. "Scatter!" Sun Ji yelled, rallying the group. He braced himself, raising his shield to deflect an incoming strike. The sound of metal clashing against his defenses echoed through the air as the chains rebounded, but the force of the impact sent him staggering backward. Qin Kuei quickly raised her staff, chanting a protective spell to shield herself and Xiao Jia. Meanwhile, Kair dodged nimbly, her heart racing as the chains narrowly missed her. Sun Ji shouted urgently, "Qin Kuei, stay alert." Meanwhile, Xiao Jia activated his charge skill, rushing forward, while Kair knocked an arrow and aimed at the specter. As Lu Fan stumbled and lost his footing on the chains, another of the specter's grotesque hands lunged toward him. Kair's arrow, glowing faintly with energy, streaked through the air and struck the specter's hand just in time, causing it to recoil. Lu Fan glanced back, startled by the well-timed attack. His expression quickly turned stern as he called out, "Stop taking reckless shots. If you keep this up, you'll all get killed." Refocusing, Lu Fan gripped the chains tightly and crouched low, using them as a springboard to propel himself forward. The chains groaned under his weight but carried him closer to the specter's core. "Fall back, now," he commanded, his voice sharp and unyielding. With a burst of energy, he activated Dragon Fang Strike, channeling his dragon chi into his weapon. The ink dragon scale sword glowed fiercely before he unleashed a devastating slash. The grieving specter let out a piercing shriek, the strike tearing through her defenses. The air trembled from the impact, but she wasn't done yet. Recovering from the attack, the specter retaliated with chain lash, sending her massive chains thrashing wildly in all directions. Lu Fan leapt from the chains just as they whipped past him, the force sending shockwaves through the battlefield. Mid-air, he activated Dragon Blood Armor Transformation, his body undergoing a partial dragonization. The black dragon scale sword radiated an ominous power as scales formed across his arms, his strength surging. His right arm transformed into a fearsome dragon claw, its dark aura pulsating with power. Lu Fan descended with precision, activating Dragon Claw, which harnessed the full strength of his transformed arm. With a powerful swipe, he severed the specter's chains, the massive links falling to the ground with a thunderous crash. The others watched in awe as the once imposing chains lay broken, their malevolent energy dissipating into the air. "He's incredible," Xiao Jia murmured, his eyes wide with astonishment. Qin Kuei gripped her staff tightly, her voice filled with both awe and concern. "Is this the true power of the dragon scale sword?" Lu Fan landed gracefully, his dragonized arm shimmering in the eerie light. Without missing a beat, he fixed his gaze on the specter's core. "This ends now," he declared, his aura blazing with renewed intensity. Sun Ji's voice rang out urgently. "We can't handle this, boss. We need to retreat for now." Qin Kuei nodded in agreement, her tone heavy with resignation. "Lu Fan, if you keep stalling, you're putting us all in greater danger. Let's fall back while we still can." Standing firm, Lu Fan turned to Sun Ji and gave a clear command. "Take everyone and head back to the village. The zombies have already been dealt with there, so it'll be safer. Leave this to me." Qin Kuei hesitated, worry etched across her face. "But what about you? You're going to face that thing alone." Lu Fan's eyes sharpened. "I'll cover your retreat. Don't argue, just move." Kair called out to Qin Kuei, urging her to act. "We don't have time to waste. Let's go." Qin Kuei reluctantly nodded, muttering bitterly, "We're completely useless. He's the only one who can fight this thing." As the group began their retreat, Lu Fan muttered under his breath, "Even without the attribute debuff, you wouldn't be able to help much. Better to let someone who can handle this stay behind." His gaze locked onto the grieving specter, whose anguished scream reverberated through the air. Without hesitation, Lu Fan raised his hand and activated a portal. "It's time," he said, his voice steady. "Xiao Yi, you can come out now." From the swirling vortex, Xiao Yi emerged in her magnificent dragon form, her scales shimmering like molten metal. With a deafening roar, she charged at the grieving specter, sinking her razor-sharp teeth into one of its grotesque hands. The specter screeched in pain, thrashing violently to shake her off. Meanwhile, Sun Ji, Qin Kuei, and the others had paused at a safe distance, drawn by the commotion behind them. "What's going on back there?" Xiao Jia asked, squinting through the fog of battle. Kair's jaw dropped in disbelief. "Wait, is that a dragon? Did Lu Fan actually summon a dragon?" Their astonishment grew as they watched Xiao Yi launch a fierce assault. She unleashed her giant jaws assault skill, a high-speed charge followed by a savage bite that tore into the specter's flesh, leaving deep, bleeding wounds. Each strike radiated raw power, forcing the grieving specter onto the defensive. Qin Kuei's eyes widened as she whispered, "Lu Fan. Who are you really?" Xiao Yi roared again, her majestic form dominating the battlefield as she fought alongside Lu Fan, the tides of the battle beginning to shift. The grieving specter shrieked in agony as Xiao Yi's relentless assault tore through her defenses. With a mighty leap, Xiao Yi slashed through the chains that bound the specter, her claws gleaming with ferocious power. The specter wailed as she was forced backward, her massive form collapsing into the lake with a resounding splash that sent waves rippling across the surface. Foamy bubbles began to rise, breaking the lake's eerie stillness. Kair, watching from a distance, hesitated before asking, "Did Lu Fan actually defeat her?" Sun Ji shook his head in disbelief, his voice tinged with awe. That was terrifying. A boss this powerful, dismembered in just a few strikes. I've never seen anything like it. Xiao Jia, wide-eyed and pale, nodded slowly. I swear I saw it with my own eyes. That dragon, it wasn't just an illusion. It's real. Meanwhile, Qin Kuei's mind raced as she observed the scene. Her thoughts lingered on the rumors she'd heard from Zhanghai City. Could this enigmatic man be the one they whispered about? The dragon tamer, Lu Fan? As silence began to settle over the battlefield, an ancient memory stirred within the grieving specter's tormented cries. 3 centuries ago, she had been a young woman in the quiet village near the lake. Protected by the church, she lived a peaceful life, far removed from the perils of the outside world. But that tranquility shattered when a devastating plague swept through the village, leaving death and despair in its wake. The village, overwhelmed by the sheer number of corpses, could no longer bury their dead. Bodies were piled by the lake, their lifeless eyes reflecting the anguish of the living. Consumed by desperation, the woman had sought to save her people, but her efforts bore no fruit. Her healing failed, and she turned to summoning spirits, giving the grieving villagers a chance to bid their final farewells. But instead of gratitude, she faced condemnation. The church, once her sanctuary, turned against her. The priests, claiming she was the harbinger of the plague, accused her of bringing ruin to their lives. "You must be chained," they demanded, binding her with heavy iron as they cursed her name. They painted her as a malevolent witch and cast her into the lake, sealing her fate. Despair etched deep into her soul. The woman, now the grieving specter, cried out, "Why? Why do you treat me this way? All I wanted was to save you. Even if I couldn't heal the sick, I gave you a chance to say goodbye. What did I do wrong?" Her anguish echoed across time, a haunting lament that still resonated in the realm she was forced to inhabit. The villagers' betrayal, the crushing weight of their false accusations, and the chains of their hatred had forged the monstrous specter now lying dormant beneath the lake's surface. As the group caught their breath, several turned toward Lu Fan with curiosity. "How on earth can you summon a dragon?" one of them finally asked, disbelief clear in their tone. Before he could respond, another pointed out, "The portal's ready. We can leave the secret realm now." But Lu Fan's gaze remained fixed on the lake. "No," he said firmly. "If the portal hasn't appeared yet, it means the boss isn't dead. It's not over." Before anyone could argue, the stillness of the lake was broken. Water erupted in all directions as the grieving specter rose once again, her voice trembling with anguish. Her haunting cry echoed, filled with despair and unanswered questions. "Why? Why must this happen?" she wailed as water swirled violently around her towering figure. The group instinctively readied their weapons, their tension palpable. The specter's mournful demands turned to seething curses as her body began to shift. With a piercing scream, she unleashed her wrath, transitioning into her second form, Morning Grudge, a level 25 nightmare difficulty boss. "Be careful," Kair shouted, gripping her bow tightly. "She's entering her second phase." The Morning Grudge let out a roar, absorbing the water surrounding her into a massive torrent. With a furious motion, she launched the swirling mass of water toward the hunters. "None of you will leave this place alive," she threatened, her voice carrying an edge of madness. Zhao Yi stepped forward, her draconic aura radiating strength. Activating her unique skill, Black Dragon Bloodline, her body shimmered with defensive energy. The system notified her allies, damage received reduced by 50%, all debuffs nullified, and self-recovery rate increased by 500%. With an ear-splitting roar, Zhao Yi intercepted the water attack, the force of the impact creating shockwaves that shook the ground. Elsewhere, Kair leaped aside to avoid another water projectile, but her relief was short-lived. The water coiled and surged toward her, ensnaring her in an unyielding prison. "Kair!" Qin Kuei screamed in alarm, rushing toward her friend. Kair grimaced, struggling against the water's grip. "It's no use," she shouted. "I can't break it. The system says this is body of resentment, immune to all physical damage." She clicked her tongue in frustration before her expression softened, guilt washing over her. "I'm sorry, Qin Kuei. It looks like this is the end for me." "Don't say that," Qin Kuei cried, her voice trembling. "If anyone's to blame, it's me. I was the one who insisted we explore this secret realm. I've put everyone in danger." Before the weight of despair could crush them, Lu Fan's voice cut through the chaos. "Are you all just going to give up now?" His words carried an unshakable resolve, drawing everyone's attention. They turned to him, momentarily stunned by his unwavering determination. "If you can still stand, then fight," Lu Fan declared, gripping his weapon tightly as the battle raged on. "We're not leaving this realm until we finish what we started." Qin Kuei stepped forward, frustration clear in her voice. "I'm the only one here with magical attacks, but my level isn't high enough to deal significant damage," she exclaimed. Suanji clenched his fists as he scanned the battlefield, muttering grimly, "The boss is completely immune to physical damage. We can't even defend ourselves effectively." Turning to Lu Fan, he asked urgently, "Do you still have magic attacks you can use?" Before Lu Fan could answer, the Morning Grudge let out a piercing wail and activated her skill, Lamentation Impact. A dark aura radiated from her, spreading like a suffocating fog. The system notified them of the skill's effects: low chance of instant death, if not triggered, inflicts heavy damage and applies debuffs including corpse poison, bleeding, and stun. "I can't," Lu Fan admitted calmly, despite the chaos. But, he glanced at Zhao Yi, his dragon companion, who exuded a fierce energy. "My dragon can." Qin Kuei and the others exchanged uncertain glances. "A dragon?" Kair questioned in disbelief. "But with the level difference, how effective could it possibly be?" As if to answer her doubts, Zhao Yi roared, her scales gleaming with a fiery black sheen. Activating her skill, Black Dragon Bloodline, she exuded an aura that granted her immunity to instant death, poison, bleeding, and stun. Lu Fan smirked, addressing the group with a firm voice. "The attributes of a dragon are on a completely different scale compared to humans. Don't underestimate her." Meanwhile, the Morning Grudge's voice echoed with anger and denial, her distorted form trembling with resentment. "It wasn't my fault," she cried, her voice like nails on a chalkboard. With another wave of her hands, she unleashed Lamentation Impact once more, sending waves of dark energy surging toward the group. Zhao Yi surged forward, her immense form shielding the hunters. The immunity effects of her Black Dragon Bloodline absorbed the brunt of the attack, leaving her unscathed. The ground trembled beneath her as she let out a defiant roar, challenging the Morning Grudge's power. Lu Fan seized the moment, calling out to Zhao Yi. "Now," he commanded, activating his skill Dragon Inspiration. A radiant energy engulfed Zhao Yi, amplifying her abilities and bolstering her attacks. The atmosphere shifted as the once doubtful hunters saw the tide of the battle begin to turn. Lu Fan activated his skill, Dragon Inspiration, enveloping both himself and Zhao Yi in a radiant aura. The energy surged through them, enhancing all attributes and significantly boosting their attack power. Seizing the opportunity, Zhao Yi unleashed her skill, Lava Blaze. Flames erupted from her maw, roaring forward in an unrelenting stream that scorched everything in their path. The intense heat radiated through the battlefield, singeing the very air. The Morning Grudge writhed in agony, her anguished screams echoing around the secret realm. "No! This can't be," she cried as Zhao Yi's flames consumed her, relentless and fierce. Qin Kuei stood frozen in disbelief, her voice catching in her throat. Suanji could only shake his head in awe and mutter, This is pure devastation." Amid the chaos, Kair yelped in protest, shielding herself from the blazing heat. "It's too hot," she complained, wiping sweat from her brow. Zhao Yi pressed on, her draconic form towering over the battlefield. "It's over," she declared with unshakable confidence, her voice resonating with triumph. The Morning Grudge's form began to crumble under the relentless onslaught of flames. Her final screams filled the air as her body burned away. "No! This isn't the end," she wailed. In a desperate last act, she activated her skill, Will of Resentment. A wave of malevolent energy erupted from her, and purple smoke enveloped the area. The skill's effect resonated through the realm, reviving the countless corpses that lay hidden. As the smoke began to clear, the Morning Grudge's form disintegrated, fading into embers. Where her body once stood, a treasure chest emerged from the dissipating haze, glinting faintly in the glow of the flames. Zhao Yi reverted to her humanoid form, her energy settling. A notification echoed in Lu Fan's mind: Zhao Yi had leveled up. He gave her an approving nod. "Well done," he praised, a rare smile breaking through his stoic demeanor. Another notification followed, confirming that Lu Fan himself had increased level 5. Victory was theirs, though the challenges of the secret realm were far from over. As the portal shimmered into view, Suanji exhaled in relief. "It's finally over," he muttered, his voice tinged with exhaustion. Zhao Jia, coughing from the lingering smoke, pointed out with irritation, "About time. This whole ordeal was like endless walking." Meanwhile, Qin Kuei checked on Kair, asking, "Are you all right?" Kair nodded, though she looked visibly drained. Suddenly, a chilling sound interrupted their brief respite, the groaning and shuffling of the undead. Suanji and Zhao Jia snapped to attention, their faces pale as they realized the corpses in the village were rising once more. "The zombies! They're back!" Zhao Jia shouted, gripping his weapon tightly. Out of nowhere, Zhao Yi reappeared, her presence exuding dominance. Suanji stared, his eyes wide in disbelief. What's that? He asked, his voice trembling. Without hesitation, Zhao Yi activated her skill, lava blaze flames erupted in a fiery torrent, engulfing the undead in a scorching inferno. The air was filled with the agonized screams of the zombies as they were reduced to ash. That's the giant dragon? Suanji stammered, still in shock. Qin Kuei, however, confirmed with a nod, yes, Zhao Yi took them down like it was nothing. We struggled so much, and she obliterated them effortlessly. Lu Fan approached, his tone calm yet authoritative. Zhao Yi is the black dragon, he explained. This is child's play for her. Turning to Qin Kuei, he added, the boss has been defeated. There's no need to remain so tense. Once the rewards are distributed, we can prepare to leave. Lu Fan continued, by the rules, I'll choose first. Any objections? His gaze swept across the group. Qin Kuei quickly shook her head, responding, no objections here. You've earned it? Lu Fan opened the chest, and a dazzling light poured out, momentarily blinding them. Inside lay an array of treasures. 1. The Holy Light Staff, a radiant weapon containing the Holy Light Seal, which allowed the wielder to bind enemies with beams of light. The duration of the binding depended on the user's spirit attribute. 2. Twilight, a mystical item with the light flow ability, enabling the creation of a protective barrier made from beams of light. 3. The Ring of Morning, an enchanted ring imbued with the morning aura, allowing the user to designate a target to bear an aura that inflicted resentment points with every attack. 4. The Class Change Scroll, a rare item that granted a chance for non-hidden classes to evolve into their superior hidden counterpart. Lu Fan reached into the chest and picked up the Class Change Scroll without hesitation. I'll take this, he declared, his voice firm. Qin Kuei responded immediately, her tone both admiring and sincere. There's no need to hold back on our account. You carried us through this. It's only right? As the group began preparing to leave the realm, the tension lifted, though their minds still reeled from the trials they had just survived. As per the rules, all the items in the chest technically belonged to Lu Fan, yet he made it clear that he wasn't trying to act noble. It's not about pretending to be a gentleman, he explained. The gear with spirit-related attributes suits you better. However, I truly need the Class Change Scroll. Qin Kuei, looking thoughtful, responded, if it weren't for you, we might not have made it out alive. With a resolute expression, she extended the Ring of Morning toward him. At least take this. You've earned it? Lu Fan hesitated for a moment before accepting. All right, he said with a small smile. I won't refuse then. Meanwhile, Suanji called out to the group, urging them to prepare for their return. As they began organizing, Qin Kuei couldn't help but reflect on Lu Fan. What else is he hiding, she wondered, her gaze lingering on him. He's so difficult to figure out. 4 hours later, as the evening settled over Zhonghai City, Lu Fan found himself in a small, bustling bun shop. Without warning, Han Qi rushed toward him, wrapping him in a tight embrace. Lu Fan, she exclaimed, her voice trembling. That was far too dangerous. Just hearing what you've been through these past few days makes my heart race. I can't believe you encountered so much peril. Caught off guard, Lu Fan awkwardly patted her back. Hey, what's wrong? He asked gently. You should let go of me. I've been out in the wild for days, my clothes are filthy. But Han Qi only tightened her grip, tears streaming down her face. You're not dirty, she cried. You left without saying anything. I haven't been able to sleep for nights, afraid that it was all a dream. I feared I'd wake up, and you still wouldn't be back. Lu Fan's expression softened as guilt flickered in his eyes. I'm sorry, he said earnestly. I shouldn't have left the city without talking to you first. But I promise, you don't need to worry anymore. I won't make you go through that again. Han Qi sniffled, wiping her tears. All right, she whispered, finally loosening her hold. I'll trust you. Turning her attention to Zhao Yi, Han Qi's tone brightened with awe. I have to admit, she said, her voice tinged with amazement, when I first saw you, I was so startled. I mean, who would have thought such a cute girl could be an incredibly powerful dragon? Zhao Yi, standing tall in her humanoid form, let out a low, proud roar in response. The sound was both playful and imposing, bringing a warm smile to Lu Fan's face as the tension of their previous battles finally began to fade. Han Qi looked at Zhao Yi with concern. You probably haven't had much to eat these past few days, right? Are you hungry? She asked warmly. When Zhao Yi nodded eagerly, Han Qi smiled. Before she could head to the kitchen, Lu Fan called her over and handed her a scroll. Here, he said, presenting the Class Change Scroll. This was a reward I picked specifically for you after clearing the dungeon. If you use this, you could unlock a hidden class. You wouldn't have to stay tied to the bun shop anymore. Han Qi blinked in surprise but quickly shook her head. This is way too valuable, she protested. I can't accept something like this. Why don't we sell it instead? Lu Fan chuckled softly. I left the equipment and weapons for Qin Kuei. If we sold this scroll, we'd only get enough to buy a couple of items, and honestly, I don't need more gear for the big exam. I'm already well prepared. He continued, besides, I'm not exactly short on money or equipment. To prove his point, he opened his account on the Dragon Garden Zhonghai Silver Bank, revealing an impressive balance. Han Qi's eyes widened in astonishment. How? She stammered. I sold a lot of materials during this trip, Lu Fan explained. And don't forget, Qin Kuei promised a reward of 100,000 as well. Trust me, we won't have to worry about money anymore. Han Qi was visibly moved by his assurance, but she hesitated. Lu Fan placed a hand on her shoulder, his tone firm yet kind. Take the scroll. It's best if you use it right away. After a moment's pause, Han Qi nodded. All right, I'll trust you. She unfolded the scroll, and it emitted a radiant light that engulfed her. As the scroll disintegrated into glowing fragments, Han Qi stood still, her eyes closed as the system processed her class change. When the light faded, Lu Fan approached her with curiosity. Did it work? Han Qi's face lit up as she nodded. It worked. I've become an enchantment chef, a superior hidden class for chefs. Lu Fan raised an eyebrow. Enchantment chef? What's special about it? With excitement, Han Qi explained, I now have a skill called enchantment cooking. I can create dishes that grant various buffs. It's amazing. And with my existing cooking skills, the buffs will likely have high additional attributes. Lu Fan grinned. That sounds incredible. You'll make us unstoppable? Han Qi laughed, a light blush dusting her cheeks. You always know how to make someone feel good with your words. Suddenly, Lu Fan's expression shifted as he glanced around. Wait, where's Zhao Yi? She was just here a moment ago. Meanwhile, Zhao Yi had fallen asleep in the kitchen, her small figure curled up near a tray of buns she had been nibbling on during the night. Her peaceful snores echoed faintly, a stark contrast to the tension brewing elsewhere. In the Qin family villa's study, Qin Shanhai was deep in conversation with Qin Kuei. His expression was serious as he asked, is it true, the rumors about Lu Fan being a dragon tamer? Did he really summon a powerful black dragon to save everyone? Qin Kuei nodded solemnly. Yes, it's true. If it hadn't been for him, we wouldn't have made it out alive. I was too stubborn, and my recklessness almost got everyone killed. She paused, her tone shifting to one of awe. But Lu Fan, his strength is on another level. We both have hidden occupations, but the gap between us is as vast as the difference between a firefly and the moon. Qin Shanhai leaned back in his chair, a thoughtful look on his face. Did you tell anyone about the dragon? Qin Kuei shook her head firmly. No, I promised Lu Fan when we returned that I wouldn't speak of it outside the Qin family. A slight smile tugged at Qin Shanhai's lips. Good. If word about that dragon got out, I can't even begin to imagine the chaos it would cause. The people who covet such power would stop at nothing. Qin Kuei hesitated before speaking again. Father, Lu Fan saved all of us. Do you have any thoughts about his dragon? Qin Shanhai chuckled, shaking his head. Do you really think I'm that kind of person? No, my thoughts are elsewhere. But tell me, how do you plan to thank him for saving your life? Qin Kuei straightened, her voice steady. When I invited him to join the team, I promised him a reward of 100,000. I plan to honor that. Good. But take a purple tier Tong card as well. Personally thank him tomorrow. He deserves more than just the reward you promised. Qin Kuei agreed but then asked, aren't you curious to meet him yourself? Don't you want to see the dragon tamer in person? Qin Shanhai sighed, a trace of regret in his tone. If I had the chance, I'd certainly like to meet him. But I have other matters to attend to. The princess of the Tizi Kingdom is arriving in Zhonghai City today. Her visit is officially for studying, but with the big exam approaching, I doubt that's the real reason. There's too much at stake, and her presence likely signals something bigger. The next morning, Princess Jinju of the Tizi Kingdom arrived in Zhonghai City, accompanied by her trusted aide, Kuei Hongtai. The two made their way through the bustling streets, eventually arriving at the small bun shop. Standing before the humble establishment, Princess Jinju gazed at it curiously, her elegant figure out of place amidst the simplicity of the surroundings. Kuei Hongtai knocked on the door, and after a moment, Han Qi answered, peeking out cautiously. Seeing the two unfamiliar faces, she offered a polite smile. Are you here to buy buns? I'm afraid we're not open yet. Princess Jinju wrinkled her nose as she stood outside the modest bun shop, her disdain evident. She turned to her attendant, Kuei Hongtai, and asked sharply, are you certain this is the place? It looks more like a dump. Kuei Hongtai nodded affirmatively. According to the investigation, this is indeed where he resides. Han Qi, noticing the exchange, stepped forward hesitantly. Who are you? What do you want here? She asked, her tone polite but firm. Her question was ignored as Kuei Hongtai forcefully pushed the door open, sending Han Chi stumbling backward with a yelp. She landed on the floor with a thud, pain flashing across her face. Without a hint of concern, Princess Jinju stepped inside, her sharp eyes scanning the room with clear disdain. "How filthy," she muttered before turning her gaze to Han Chi. "You. I'm looking for someone. Do you know a man named Lu Fan?" Before Han Chi could respond, a voice called from the staircase. "Who's asking for me?" Lu Fan descended the stairs, his expression shifting from curiosity to concern when he saw Han Chi on the ground, clutching her arm. His eyes narrowed as he took in the scene. "Han Chi, are you all right?" "What happened?" he asked, helping her to her feet. Han Chi brushed herself off, trying to muster a reassuring smile despite the pain. "I'm fine," she said softly. "Just a little startled." Princess Jinju, her gaze now fixed on Lu Fan, spoke with an air of authority. "So, you're Lu Fan. I've come to see you personally." Lu Fan raised an eyebrow. "A princess? Looking for me?" He glanced between her and Kuei Hongtai. "And who might you be?" Kuei Hongtai straightened, his tone formal. "This is Princess Jinju of the Taisai Kingdom, and I am her attendant." Princess Jinju took a step forward, a smirk playing on her lips. "I've come to offer you an extraordinary opportunity. Something that only someone like you would appreciate." Lu Fan folded his arms, his gaze skeptical. "An opportunity, you say? What kind of opportunity?" Princess Jinju let out a soft laugh, her eyes gleaming with amusement. "Being a dragon tamer must be exhausting, isn't it? But worry not. I've brought something that will change your life." With a dramatic flourish, she revealed a gleaming dragon egg, cradled delicately in her hands. Its surface shimmered with iridescent hues, radiating an aura of immense power. Lu Fan's eyes widened in surprise, but he remained silent as she continued. "This is a dragon egg, something so rare that it's said to be the only one of its kind in the world. I acquired it from the legendary armored dragon's lair, and now, I'm offering it to you." His gaze flickered between the egg and the princess. "And what's the catch?" he asked cautiously. Princess Jinju's smirk deepened as she stepped closer. "It's simple. The egg is yours, if you agree to my terms." Lu Fan's jaw tightened. "What are these terms?" Her tone turned cold, laced with authority. "You'll become my slave. From this moment forward, you will obey my every command without question. You'll be mine to command, and you must never defy me." Lu Fan's expression hardened. "A slave," he repeated, his voice sharp. Princess Jinju laughed lightly, clearly unbothered by his reaction. "Is that so hard to believe? You should be honored. For someone like you who's likely never seen such a powerful dragon egg before, I understand it might feel overwhelming." She held the egg out slightly, her voice dropping to a taunting whisper. "So, what do you say, Lu Fan? Are you too afraid to seize this chance?" Lu Fan examined the attributes of the armored dragon egg with a discerning eye. "So, it's a land dragon," he remarked, his tone neutral. "That's a rank even lower than a wyvern. Its endurance might be noteworthy, but aside from that, there's nothing special about it." Princess Jinju's expression twisted in disbelief. She snapped, momentarily losing her composed demeanor. Her irritation deepened as Lu Fan continued. "The attributes are decent, sure. But if you're offering this to impress me, you might want to reconsider your strategy." His blunt critique left Princess Jinju speechless. For a moment, her mind raced, wondering if Lu Fan truly understood the significance of a dragon egg. "Does he not grasp what this means for a dragon tamer?" she thought, frustration evident in her narrowed eyes. While the tension in the room grew, Han Chi, standing nearby, couldn't contain her dismay. "How can you act like this? Barging into someone's home and making these demands?" she exclaimed, her voice trembling with indignation. Lu Fan turned to her, his tone calm but firm. "Don't worry about them, Han Chi. I'll deal with this." Princess Jinju's eyes glinted with superiority as she turned her attention back to Lu Fan. "Let's not waste words. I'm right, aren't I? A dragon tamer without a dragon is nothing but a glorified title. However," she added with a sly smile, "if you accept my offer, you'll transcend mediocrity. You'll become the strongest dragon tamer in history, one that's never been recorded before. Doesn't the mere thought of that excite you?" Lu Fan tilted his head slightly, considering her words with a faint smirk. "Exciting? I'll admit, the idea sounds thrilling," he said, his tone laced with sarcasm. Princess Jinju's confidence surged, only for it to shatter with his next words. "But I'm not interested." Her jaw dropped, her voice faltering. "What?" she said, almost in a whisper. "Do you even understand what you're refusing? This is an opportunity to make history. You're declining a chance to be remembered forever, to become my servant and achieve greatness." Lu Fan's expression turned cold. "If you've come here to propose that nonsense, then I suggest you leave. I have no interest in your so-called opportunity," your dragon egg, or, least of all, being your servant. The idea is laughable. Kuei Hongtai stepped forward, his face dark with anger. Watch your tongue, you insolent fool, he barked. The princess has personally graced you with a chance to rise above your pitiful station, and you dare to speak so disrespectfully? Do you even know who you're talking to? But Lu Fan remained unshaken, his calm gaze meeting the attendant's fury with an air of unbothered confidence, as if their threats were nothing more than the buzzing of an annoying insect. Lu Fan chuckled mockingly at the mention of respect and servitude. Respect? Servant? Are you serious? He scoffed, his tone dripping with disdain. Don't make me laugh. I'd never bow to anyone, let alone to someone like you. Kuei Hongtai's face darkened with fury at Lu Fan's blatant defiance. Gritting his teeth, he stepped forward, but Princess Jinju raised a hand to silence him. Kuei Hongtai, she commanded coolly, her gaze fixed on Lu Fan, teach him a lesson. Show him what happens to those who disrespect the princess of Taisai. Kuei Hongtai immediately nodded, his anger simmering just below the surface. As he moved to comply, Han Qi, who had been watching with growing anxiety, quickly intervened. Please, wait, she exclaimed, stepping between them. This is all just a misunderstanding. There's no need for violence. Lu Fan truly doesn't want anything to do with your offer, so can't we just let this go? Her plea fell on deaf ears. Kuei Hongtai sneered and shoved her aside with a forceful strike. Move, you insolent commoner, he barked, his voice full of contempt. Han Qi cried out as she stumbled backward, landing hard on the ground. Lu Fan's eyes narrowed sharply, his expression darkening as he rushed to her side. Han Qi, he called, kneeling next to her. Are you hurt? Where does it hurt? Tell me. Han Qi, despite her obvious pain, managed a weak smile and shook her head. I'm fine, she murmured, trying to reassure him. Really, it's nothing. Kuei Hongtai sneered again, his voice dripping with arrogance. Pathetic commoners daring to defy royalty, he spat. If you won't bow willingly, then we'll do this the hard way. As Kuei Hongtai raised his fist to strike again, Han Qi gasped, noticing a sudden change in the air. Lu Fan, she cried, trying to warn him. But Kuei Hongtai's attack never landed. Instead, a fiery aura erupted around Lu Fan, the sheer intensity of it forcing Kuei Hongtai to stagger back in shock. Blood trickled down Kuei Hongtai's face from a sudden gash, and his eyes widened as he realized the situation had shifted dramatically. Lu Fan rose slowly, his expression cold and deadly. In his hand, a gleaming dagger appeared, its edge catching the light as it pointed directly at Kuei Hongtai's throat. You dared to lay a hand on my family, Lu Fan said, his voice low and filled with unyielding menace. For that, I'll kill you. Han Qi grabbed Lu Fan's arm desperately, her voice trembling. Please, Lu Fan, don't do this. Don't act rashly. He's not worth it. Kuei Hongtai stood frozen, his earlier arrogance replaced by fear as he stared into Lu Fan's eyes. The fiery aura around Lu Fan burned hotter, the sheer pressure of it suffocating. Princess Jinju, who had been watching with growing alarm, finally found her voice. Kuei Hongtai, she snapped, her voice laced with anger. What are you doing? I told you to teach him a lesson, not to stand there like an idiot. Kuei Hongtai barely managed to stammer, his fear evident. There's something wrong with him, he muttered, unable to tear his gaze away from Lu Fan's dagger. Lu Fan, still holding his weapon steady, finally turned his attention to Princess Jinju. Lu Fan stood tall, his eyes sharp with fury. I don't care which royal family you belong to, he growled, his voice firm and cold. Princess or not, take your trash and leave. And keep your mouth shut while you're at it. Princess Jinju's face contorted with indignation, but before she could retort, Lu Fan's hand moved like a blur, delivering a stinging slap across her cheek. She stumbled back, clutching her face in shock. A gasp escaped from Kuei Hongtai as he stared in disbelief. How dare a lowly commoner lay hands on a princess, he roared, drawing his blade in a swift motion and charging at Lu Fan. But Lu Fan remained unfazed. With a casual yet precise movement, he intercepted Kuei Hongtai's blade, effortlessly deflecting the attack. The clash echoed sharply, and with a calculated twist, Lu Fan disarmed him, sending the blade clattering to the ground. Kuei Hongtai, startled and outmatched, scrambled to Princess Jinju's side. Your Highness. Are you all right? He asked frantically. Princess Jinju, still fuming, slapped Kuei Hongtai across the face without hesitation. Do I look all right to you, you useless fool? She snapped, her voice dripping with venom. You couldn't even protect me, let alone deal with him. Useless trash. She glared at Kuei Hongtai, her frustration boiling over. Kill him, she ordered, her voice shaking with anger. I don't care if we never find another dragon tamer. I want him dead. Kuei Hongtai, humiliated but obedient, clenched his fists and nodded. As you command, Your Highness, he replied, gritting his teeth as he prepared to attack again. Meanwhile, far from the chaotic scene, Xiaoyi stirred awake to the sound of Lu Fan's phone ringing. Groggily, she reached for it, but it kept ringing unanswered. The caller was Qin Kuei, her voice tinged with confusion as she muttered to herself, strange. He's not answering. This is definitely the number we exchanged after we got back to the city. Did I dial it wrong? Determined to find him, she decided to search for his house in person. As Qin Kuei walked through the streets, a deafening explosion suddenly erupted in front of her, stopping her in her tracks. The ground trembled, and dust filled the air as bystanders began to panic. What's going on? One of them shouted. Is someone fighting nearby? Through the chaos, Kuei Hongtai groaned in pain as he was violently flung out of the battle zone. His body skidded across the ground before coming to an abrupt halt, blood dripping from his lip. The clash had escalated beyond anything he could have imagined, and it was clear that Lu Fan was far more dangerous than anyone had anticipated. As the commotion outside the shop grew louder, a bystander whispered, "Looks like some foreigner is causing trouble again." Another muttered in agreement, "Always stirring things up around here." Princess Jinju, hearing the murmurs, turned to the crowd with a sneer. "What are you lowly people gawking at?" she snapped. "Get out of here before I make you." Kuei Hongtai, battered and humiliated, clenched his fists as he observed Lu Fan. "His attributes, they're not low," he muttered under his breath, frustration mounting. "No wonder I'm struggling." Princess Jinju scoffed, her tone laced with disdain. "Struggling? Against someone like him?" She shot Kuei Hongtai a scornful glare. "You're absolutely useless. How can you lose to a dragon tamer with such mediocre abilities?" She took a step forward, her eyes glowing with a sinister light. "Fine. I'll deal with this myself." As she extended her hands, a dark, oppressive aura began to swirl around her, growing in intensity with every passing second. The air grew heavy, and Lu Fan narrowed his eyes, analyzing her energy. "This spell," he murmured. "It's nothing like Qin Kuei's power. It's the polar opposite." His gaze hardened. "She's hiding her true class." Meanwhile, Qin Kuei appeared from around the corner, her face etched with concern. "Lu Fan. What's going on here?" she called out, rushing toward him. Lu Fan turned to her, his expression a mix of relief and alarm. "Qin Kuei? What are you doing here?" But before she could answer, the dark aura emanating from Princess Jinju enveloped Kuei Hongtai, transforming him. His eyes turned wild, and his body emitted a surge of raw energy that sent shockwaves in all directions. The sheer force pushed both Lu Fan and Qin Kuei back. Kuei Hongtai's laughter rang out, now low and guttural, as he flexed his newly empowered body. "A monster?" Lu Fan muttered, his eyes narrowing. Princess Jinju smirked triumphantly. "Not so useless now, is he?" she quipped, her tone dripping with mockery. "Finish him off, Kuei Hongtai. Make him regret ever crossing me." Kuei Hongtai let out a maniacal laugh as he raised his weapon, now glowing with an unnatural energy. "You're going to die, Lu Fan," he roared, charging forward with an overwhelming speed and power. Lu Fan, keeping his composure, stepped back and assessed the situation. "This is bad," he thought. "His attack power has skyrocketed. I'll have to use Dragon's Inspiration combined with Dragon Claw to stand a chance." Just as Kuei Hongtai lunged forward, Qin Kuei called out, "Lu Fan. Let me help you." She stepped closer, but Lu Fan immediately raised a hand. "No," he said firmly. "Stay back and take care of Han Qi inside the shop. She needs you more right now." Kuei Hongtai's crazed laughter filled the air as he closed in. "No one's saving you now, Lu Fan," he bellowed. Princess Jinju folded her arms, her smirk widening. "Yes, that's it. End him and relieve my anger," she commanded. Kuei Hongtai grinned, his voice booming. "With Her Highness's augmentation, I'm invincible." But his overconfidence wavered when Xiaoyi suddenly stepped out of the shop. "Xiaoyi." Lu Fan's voice was sharp, filled with both surprise and worry. Kuei Hongtai froze momentarily, his eyes narrowing. A sinister smile crept across Xiaoyi's face. "Perfect," he muttered, his gaze shifting between Lu Fan and Xiaoyi. "This just got a whole lot more interesting." As chaos erupted, Princess Jinju's face turned pale, her body trembling as she stared at Xiaoyi. A chilling thought crossed her mind. Could it be that Xiaoyi is an actual dragon? Her confidence wavered, and fear took root. Lu Fan stepped forward, his tone cold and resolute. "Now, it's my turn," he declared, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. Xiaoyi unleashed an earth-shaking roar, a sound so powerful it sent shivers down the spines of everyone present. Princess Jinju and Kuei Hongtai froze in terror, their bodies locked in place as panic consumed them. With terrifying speed, Xiaoyi lunged at Kuei Hongtai, slamming him into the ground with brutal force. The impact echoed through the area like thunder, creating a massive shockwave that sent Princess Jinju tumbling backward. She landed hard, gasping in pain, her mind racing. How? How could this creature overpower Kue Hongtai in a single strike? Kue Hongtai coughed violently, struggling to lift himself from the crater Xiaoyi had created. Help me, save me. He croaked weakly, his voice filled with desperation. Princess Jinju scrambled to her feet, her hands glowing as she began charging a skill. Hold on, you useless fool, she barked, her voice laced with frustration and fear. But before her skill could take effect, Zeoi roared again, the sheer power of its voice resonating with an ancient authority. A black aura surged forward, carrying the might of the Black Dragon bloodline. Princess Jinju's skill shattered mid-cast, leaving her powerless. Kue Hongtai screamed as Zeoi tightened its grip on him. Please, let me go, he begged, his voice cracking with terror. Without mercy, Zeoi flung Kue Hongtai across the battlefield. His body crashed to the ground with a sickening thud, leaving him groaning in agony. Forgive me, Princess Jinju. He muttered weakly, his spirit completely broken. Princess Jinju stood frozen, her mind spiraling as realization dawned upon her. This strength, it must belong to a true dragon. Her eyes darted toward Zeoi, a mix of fear and disbelief clouding her expression. The Jin family may possess dragon eggs, but this proves there are real dragons still out there. Breaking her trance, Lu Fan stepped closer, his voice calm yet taunting. Princess Jinju, he called, his words heavy with irony, weren't you going to kill me to vent your anger? What's stopping you now? Princess Jinju staggered back, her bravado completely gone. She raised a trembling hand. Stay back, she cried, her voice shaking. Don't come any closer. Her eyes darted between Lu Fan and Zeoi, and for the first time, the once proud princess realized she had no control over the situation. Princess Jinju's voice rose in fury, her regal demeanor masking her growing unease. Lu Fan, you dared to attack my attendant, humiliate me, and inflict such serious injuries. Do you realize the consequences of your actions? You've made yourself an enemy of the Taiki kingdom. Lu Fan chuckled coldly, his expression unfazed. Oh, trying to scare me now, are you? He retorted, his tone dripping with sarcasm. You sent your man to harm my family, princess. So tell me, what do you think I'm going to do about it? Princess Jinju's confidence wavered for a brief moment, but she held her ground. And what exactly do you want? She asked, narrowing her eyes. Lu Fan stepped forward, his voice steady and menacing. Don't start throwing around titles like Princess of the Taiki Kingdom as if that means anything here, he said. Behind him, Zeoi began gathering energy, her presence radiating an ominous power. Even if you were a god, Lu Fan declared, his gaze piercing, it wouldn't matter. I'll pay you back for everything you've done, with interest? Before Princess Jinju could respond, a voice called out, breaking the tension. Lu Fan, stop. The shout belonged to Qin Shanhai, who approached urgently. Stay back. Qinka shouted, rushing to intercept him. It's too dangerous. Zeoi snarled, her energy crackling like a storm about to break, but Lu Fan raised a hand to her. Zeoi, enough, he commanded firmly. The dragon hesitated, her fiery aura flickering, but ultimately obeyed. Lu Fan's blade moved swiftly, slicing through Princess Jinju's staff with precision. She flinched as the weapon fell in two, her confidence shattered alongside it. Meanwhile, Zeoi's charged fireball dissipated as she snapped her jaws shut, allowing Qin Shanhai to approach unharmed. His griffin landed gracefully, and he dismounted with urgency, his eyes scanning the battlefield. Qin Shanhai fixed Lu Fan with a stern expression. This has gone far enough? Qin Shanhai glanced around, concern etched on his face. Lu Fan, there are many residents in the area. You should quickly take your dragon back before things escalate further. His voice carried both authority and a hint of awe as he added, true dragons really are in a league of their own. Even standing nearby, the sheer pressure is overwhelming. Before Lu Fan could respond, Qin Kue hurriedly called out, her voice urgent. Lu Fan, please, just listen to my father. Trust us on this, all right? She looked at him pleadingly. Zeoi let out a low, rumbling roar, but Lu Fan raised his hand firmly, commanding her to stop. The dragon reluctantly obeyed, her imposing aura settling. Qin Kue stepped closer and gently suggested, come with me, Lu Fan. Let's not make things worse. Meanwhile, Qin Shanhai approached Princess Jinju, his brow furrowing with concern. Are you all right, princess? He asked, scanning her for injuries. I just got back from picking you up at the airport. I didn't expect to find you in a situation like this. Qin Shanhai continued, the Qin family's driver will be here soon to take you to the hospital. You should rest and get treated. His tone was polite but firm, leaving no room for argument. Han Qi, standing nearby, noticed the interaction. She turned to Qin Kue, whispering, it seems like your father knows Princess Jinju. Maybe, there's a way to resolve all of this peacefully. Qin Kuei nodded thoughtfully and made a quick call, hoping to de-escalate the situation. Lu Fan, however, folded his arms, his expression dark. I doubt Princess Jinju will let this go so easily, he remarked, his voice edged with skepticism. Qin Shanhai, overhearing Lu Fan's comment, chuckled lightly. I understand what you mean, he said, his tone teasing. You certainly have a talent for stirring up trouble. This is quite the mess you've gotten us all into. Lu Fan sighed and dipped his head slightly. I didn't mean to cause any trouble. Sorry for dragging you into this. Qin Shanhai waved off the apology. Don't be. Given the circumstances, none of this can be pinned entirely on you. Let's just focus on resolving it before it spirals further. Han Qi turned to Qin Shanhai, her tone filled with concern. How are you planning to handle this situation with Lu Fan? She asked. Qin Shanhai sighed, his expression thoughtful. Princess Jinju and Kui Hongtai have already been sent to the hospital. Of course, we'll need to provide the Jin family with a proper explanation, he replied. The Jin family isn't just involved in business, they hold significant sway within the upper circles of the Taiki kingdom. This situation could escalate if not handled carefully. Han Qi frowned. Considering their background, and the fact that Lu Fan actually retaliated against them, I'm worried. He could face serious consequences. Lu Fan, standing nearby, crossed his arms defiantly. Even if Princess Jinju holds great power, I refuse to bow down or compromise my dignity for something like a dragon egg, he declared firmly. Qin Shanhai couldn't suppress a chuckle. Integrity, huh? I have to admit, you've impressed me. That kind of resolve is rare. He smiled and continued, don't worry too much. I have a way to ensure your safety, but... He hesitated for a moment, then added, I can't do it alone. There's a condition. Lu Fan narrowed his eyes. What's the condition? Qin Shanhai leaned closer. If you can achieve the title of South Province champion in the upcoming grand exam, I'll do everything in my power to delay Princess Jinju's actions until the exam is over. Han Qi's eyes widened. The grand exam? That's no small feat, she interjected. The competition is fierce, with countless top-tier students across the entire S province. Qin Shanhai nodded. Exactly. Only if you manage to surpass all of them and claim the championship will I be able to leverage the situation in your favor. Lu Fan considered the challenge for a moment, then nodded resolutely. I understand. I'll accept your condition. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Princess Jinju left her room, fuming. She grabbed her phone and demanded, have you caught that Lu Fan yet? The voice on the other end of the call hesitated. Not yet, Princess, they replied carefully. Princess Jinju scowled. This is ridiculous. Qin Shanhai is clearly siding with him, she snapped. The person on the line tried to calm her. Princess, please, take it easy. We'll escalate this to the high-level officials in Longdo immediately and ensure the matter is resolved properly. Princess Jinju sighed, her anger simmering down slightly. Fine, she conceded. That's a better plan. Make it happen. Princess Jinju's tone was cold and resolute as she gave her final order. Put pressure on Lu Fan. Make him regret crossing me, she commanded, her words carrying an unspoken threat. Her expression hardened as she added venomously, I will kill him myself if I have to. The next day, the bustling playground of the 3rd middle school was abuzz with excitement and tension. Students gathered in groups, discussing their levels and skills with enthusiasm. One student turned to another with a grin. You're already level 11? That's incredible, they exclaimed, impressed. Another chimed in proudly, I've mastered all mage skills. Want to team up later? Their conversation was cut short when someone shouted, drawing everyone's attention. Hey, look over there. Isn't that Lu Fan? A wave of murmurs rippled through the crowd. One student laughed mockingly, I thought he'd gone back home to sell buns. Another joined in, snickering, isn't he the so-called top student? Now he's just trash. No school wants him, so why's he even bothering with the exam? Lu Fan ignored the familiar jeers, his expression calm. He felt no need to address the idle gossip, it was nothing but noise to him now. The chatter died down as Old Bai, a senior official, raised his voice. Quiet, everyone, he commanded. I hereby announce that the South Province Grand Exam is about to commence. Lu Fan stood silently, his mind focused elsewhere. After upgrading himself to level 15, he had accumulated several treasure maps over the past few days. However, they were all intermediate level maps, and he hadn't had the chance to use them yet. He contemplated combining 3 maps into a high-level one, believing it could give him a significant advantage in the exam. His thoughts were interrupted when Mr. Lai, his former mentor, approached him. Lu Fan, are you participating in the grand exam? He asked with a smile. Yes, Lu Fan replied firmly. I have to participate. Mr. Lai nodded approvingly. Good. I've heard you've been working on your strength recently. That's exactly what you need to succeed. He handed Lu Fan a small glowing stone. Here, take this teleportation stone. It might save your life. Lu Fan accepted the stone with a slight bow. Mr. Lai's tone grew serious. The teachers believe in your determination, Lu Fan. Your fighting spirit is strong, and you're no less capable than other professionals. But remember, this is more than just an exam. The trials are dangerous, and one misstep could result in serious injury, or worse. He paused before continuing. Try to team up with your classmates for the trial. If things get too difficult, don't hesitate to use the teleportation stone to exit. Don't push yourself unnecessarily. Lu Fan nodded. Understood, he said, though he had no intention of relying on anyone else. He wasn't just aiming to pass, he wanted to claim the top spot. As Mr. Lai walked away, Lu Fan reflected on the scoring system. The team's performance would divide points among its members, but he had no interest in sharing the glory. His goal was singular, to emerge as the champion. Just then, Qin Kuei's voice called out to him from behind. Lu Fan, she said cheerfully, breaking his train of thought. He turned to see her approaching, a mixture of determination and curiosity flickering in her eyes. Lu Fan raised an eyebrow as he noticed Qin Kuei approaching with another student. What a coincidence, he remarked with a faint smile. Turning to Qin Kuei, he asked, is this your teammate? Yes, Qin Kuei responded enthusiastically. She gestured toward the girl beside her. This is my best friend, Tao Xiaoman. She's a level 11 swordsman and incredibly strong. Tao Xiaoman greeted Lu Fan with a polite nod. Qin Kuei looked at Lu Fan with hopeful eyes. Would you like to join us for the trial? I think we'd make a great team. Lu Fan shook his head with an apologetic smile. I appreciate the offer, but I plan to participate on my own. This is something I promised to handle by myself. His voice was firm but kind. I know you're trying to help, and I'm grateful for that, but I need to do this my way. You should focus on your own trial, and good luck. Qin Kuei watched him for a moment before nodding. All right, but make sure you do your best out there. As Lu Fan walked away, Tao Xiaoman turned to Qin Kuei with a puzzled expression. Why would you invite someone from the weakest profession to team up? She asked incredulously. Qin Kuei's tone was resolute. You're wrong about Lu Fan. He's much stronger than you think. I'm confident that this year's top scorer in the South Province will be him. Tao Xiaoman blinked in disbelief. What are you talking about? Don't tell me you've fallen for that dragon Tamer. Qin Kuei's face flushed red. Of course not. Stop letting your imagination run wild, she retorted, her voice defensive. Tao Xiaoman smirked mischievously. Oh, really? Then why was your face all red earlier? Meanwhile, Lu Fan stepped through the shimmering portal leading to the exam site. The world shifted around him as he arrived at the designated location, the southern province of the Dragon Nation, Zhanghai City, inside the Grand Exam Trial Secret Realm. As students gathered in anticipation, Old Bai, the trial coordinator, addressed the crowd. Attention, everyone, he called out. The chatter died down as all eyes turned to him. This is where the trial begins, Old Bai declared. The portals you see in the sky are divided into 4 difficulty levels: normal, hard, fear, and nightmare. When the portals open, selected candidates can enter the heavenly tower using their teleportation stones. He paused, letting the information sink in, before continuing. For those entering the normal level, which has a score multiplier of 0.9, all challenges will be projections, meaning no fatal injuries will occur. However, he emphasized, from the hard level onward, the monsters are real, and the danger is very much alive. The students murmured amongst themselves, some excited, others nervous. Lu Fan, however, remained calm, his gaze fixed on the portals. This was his chance to prove himself, and he had no intention of holding back. Old Bai continued his explanation, gesturing toward the shimmering portals. If you use a teleportation stone to exit during the trial, your score will be retained, he said. The hard difficulty level has a score multiplier of 1. Most students opt for this as the default because attempting higher difficulties is considered almost suicidal. Only those with hidden professions dare to try. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as Old Bai's words settled in. The fear level, he went on, has a score multiplier of 3. However, the monsters you face there are significantly more ferocious. Solo challenges at that level are highly discouraged. Don't assume teammates can easily share scores because survival is far more important. Just then, a loud laugh rang out, cutting through the tension. The source was Hong Wu, a towering figure exuding confidence. He was a level 14 Kaigong master, a rare and powerful hidden combat profession. Are you watching, Principal? Hong Wu shouted, a cocky grin on his face. Mark my words, the highest score this year will belong to me. The students turned to stare at Hong Wu, whispering amongst themselves. Tao Xiaoman leaned closer to Qin Kuei. "That's Hong Wu," she said in a hushed tone. "He's the #1 expert at first middle school and ranks among the top 5 in the entire province." Qin Kuei nodded thoughtfully. "A Kai Gong master," she mused. "They're incredibly versatile, equally adept at offense and defense. And he's choosing to challenge the trial solo?" As Hong Wu confidently strode toward the fear portal, students around him exchanged nervous glances. "We're doomed," one of them muttered. "With Hong Wu here, we can forget about the top rankings. He's unbeatable. Maybe we should have aimed for an easier difficulty." Meanwhile, in the Grand Exam Trial Principal's office, the principal of First Middle School chuckled as he observed the proceedings through a magical screen. "Hong Wu," he said with pride, "is our school's strongest student. There's no doubt he'll claim the top score this year. Victory is all but guaranteed." He glanced at another figure on the screen. "Qin Kuei is also performing exceptionally well. I expect she'll rank in the top 3. Between the two of them, First Middle School's dominance is assured." The room buzzed with the principal's confidence, while on the field, Hong Wu's declaration set the stage for fierce competition. All eyes now turned toward the portals, where the students prepared for their trials, the weight of expectations hanging heavy in the air. At the #3 high school principal's office, the principal let out a deep sigh as he watched the ongoing trials. "What a shame about Lu Fan," he muttered, lost in thought. "If only he had awakened a different hidden profession, perhaps our school could have stood a chance against #1 middle school's dominance." Qin Shanhai, standing nearby, interrupted his musings. "Don't be so quick to dismiss our chances," he said with a confident smile. "I have someone in mind for first place, and I'm quite optimistic about him." The remark piqued the interest of the gathered principals. "Oh? And who might that be?" one of them asked curiously. Qin Shanhai's smile widened. "Lu Fan," he announced, his voice carrying a hint of pride. "The dragon tamer from our school?" A murmur spread through the room. Old Bai, overhearing the name, looked startled. Meanwhile, the #1 middle school principal chuckled dismissively. "Lu Fan, you say? That's a bold claim. But look at the scoreboard. Hong Wu has already reached the 4th floor and is securely in first place. Is Lu Fan even competing? He hasn't entered the heavenly tower yet." He laughed again, shaking his head. "Come now, Qin Shanhai, surely you jest. What can we expect from a mere dragon tamer? Nothing worth noting." Just then, Old Bai turned his attention back to the portals. "Lu Fan isn't backing out," he said firmly. "He's still waiting at the difficulty selection gates." The room fell silent as the principals exchanged surprised glances. "Don't tell me, he's going for the nightmare trial?" one of them asked incredulously. The nightmare trial was infamous, its score multiplier an astronomical 9.9, but it was a one-way challenge, a path from which few, if any, returned. "That's insanity," another principal exclaimed. "Does he not realize the danger? No dragon tamer could possibly survive such a trial." Old Bai stepped forward urgently. "Someone must stop him," he said. "The nightmare trial is no joke. The last person who attempted it was 8 years ago, and he didn't make it back. He was torn apart by the beasts within. A horrifying end." Without hesitation, Old Bai called out to Lu Fan, his voice filled with concern. "Lu Fan, stop this madness. Do you know what you're walking into? No one has ever returned unscathed from the nightmare trial." Before Old Bai could finish, Lu Fan moved decisively. Without a word, he stepped into the swirling portal in the sky, his figure vanishing into the unknown. The room was gripped by silence as Old Bai's words hung heavy in the air. "This boy," Old Bai whispered, shaking his head. "What drives him to such recklessness? If he succeeds, he will rewrite history. But if he fails?" The thought remained unspoken, but everyone knew the stakes. The principal of #1 middle school erupted in disbelief. "This is utterly ridiculous," he exclaimed, slamming his hand on the desk. "Does #3 high school not understand the rules of the grand exam? That dragon tamer is walking straight to his doom." He turned to Qin Shanhai with a smirk. "Your judgment must be seriously flawed if you think Lu Fan can be compared to Hong Wu. They're leagues apart." The other principals nodded in agreement, dismissing Qin Shanhai's confidence. "Let's focus on the real talent here," one of them chimed in. "Hong Wu is clearly the standout contender." But Qin Shanhai refused to back down. "It's too early to jump to conclusions," he countered calmly. "Why don't we wait and see how things unfold before making any hasty assumptions?" Old Bai, however, couldn't help but voice his concern. "Why are you so confident in Lu Fan?" he asked Qin Shanhai. "What exactly are you expecting from him?" As the debate raged on in the principal's office, Lu Fan had already arrived at the 1st floor of the nightmare trial. He moved swiftly, his claws slicing through the dense vines that obstructed his path. Surveying his surroundings, he calculated that the Nightmare Tower's first floor likely contained at least 10 monsters. Suddenly, the growls of black-maned wolves filled the air. The level 10 beasts emerged from the shadows, their dark manes bristling as they locked eyes with Lu Fan. One of the wolves let out a deafening roar before charging at him. Lu Fan remained unfazed, his lips curling into a confident smile. Finally, some action, he murmured. As the wolves closed in, he unleashed his skill, Dragon Fang Strike. The powerful attack tore through the pack in an instant, leaving the black-maned wolves defeated. A system notification appeared before Lu Fan. System notification, Nightmare Trial, Sky Tower first floor complete. Score, 990. Back at the principal's office, the atmosphere had shifted dramatically. The number 1 middle school principal's earlier smugness was replaced by wide-eyed astonishment. A one-hit kill, he stammered, struggling to process what he'd just witnessed. What's going on with this Lu Fan? That's absurdly strong. Another principal chimed in, their tone now tinged with awe. His stats, they're clearly far beyond those of his peers. This is no ordinary student. Old Bai, deep in thought, wondered aloud, could it be? Has Lu Fan found the legendary dragon? Meanwhile, on the leaderboard, Lu Fan's score propelled him to second place, just behind Hong Wu, who was still holding the top spot. Qin Chi and Tao Xiaoman, working together, secured third place. The rapid climb of Lu Fan's ranking left the onlookers stunned. As the principals processed the unfolding events, a man named Kai Xing approached the Grand Exam Trial's principal's office, seeking answers of his own. The number 1 middle school principal, still in disbelief, repeated his question, a one-hit kill. What on earth is going on with Lu Fan? Qian Xing burst into the principal's office, his presence commanding immediate attention. Apologies for the intrusion, he began, his tone brisk yet formal. I am Qian Xing, a special envoy from Longdo. I'm here on urgent business regarding a certain student. His sharp gaze swept across the room before he declared, I've come to take the dragon tamer, Lu Fan, back to Longdo for investigation. The principals exchanged surprised glances. The aura of authority surrounding Qian Xing was unmistakable. As a level 57 swordsman, he was clearly not someone to be taken lightly. Meanwhile, in the Nightmare Trial, Lu Fan pushed forward, slashing through the dense vines blocking his path. A triumphant smirk played on his lips as he remarked, there it is. Just then, the system chimed in. System notification, you have reached the treasure map's marked location. Lu Fan recalled synthesizing the high-level treasure map just before entering the trial's secret realm, and now it had led him straight to the reward on the first floor of the Sky Tower. Reaching out, he retrieved the treasure, and the system promptly updated him. System notification, skill book acquired, growth acceleration. Examining the skill book, Lu Fan's mind raced with possibilities. This is perfect for Xiao Yi, he thought, remembering his frustrations back in the village of grief. Xiao Yi's slow progress had been a concern, but with this passive skill, those worries would be a thing of the past. Back at the principal's office, the tension escalated. Qin Shanhai addressed Old Bai directly. You're Lu Fan's teacher, are you not? Then you should handle this matter. Qian Xing cut in, his voice cold and unyielding. That won't suffice. I demand that the trial be interrupted immediately, and Lu Fan be summoned here without delay. Old Bai frowned but maintained his composure. With all due respect, this is the grand exam. No matter how serious the issue, it must wait until the trial concludes. As his teacher, I can address the matter on Lu Fan's behalf if necessary. Qian Xing's expression hardened. You don't have the authority to take his punishment for him, he snapped. The room fell silent as Old Bai processed the envoy's words. Punishment, he repeated, his voice tinged with disbelief. Sensing the growing unease, Qin Shanhai stepped forward. Qian Xing, he began diplomatically, let's not escalate things unnecessarily. Considering our long-standing friendship, I suggest we approach this matter with patience. One of the other principals, unable to contain his curiosity, broke the silence. What exactly did Lu Fan do? He asked, his voice a mix of intrigue and concern. Qian Xing's voice sharpened, his patience clearly wearing thin. Qin Shanhai, I urge you not to interfere with my mission, he stated firmly, his tone carrying a veiled warning. Whatever your reasons for protecting the dragon tamer, I don't care to know. But let me remind you, continued meddling in this matter will anger both the Jin family and the higher-ups of Longdu. If you value your position, step aside. His gaze then shifted to Old Bai. Bring Lu Fan here immediately, he ordered with an air of finality. However, Qin Shanhai remained steadfast, his calm demeanor unshaken. Qian Xing, he began, his voice measured but resolute, you may not fully understand the stakes at play. The ties between Longdu's higher-ups and the Jin family are undeniably intricate and influential, affecting both Longhua and Takigua. Yet, if the truth about Lu Fan's secret were to come to light, all of that would pale in comparison. Neither the Jin family nor the higher-ups would matter anymore. A tense silence hung in the air as his words sank in. Qin Shanhai's eyes hardened, and he declared with conviction, "Mark my words, on this day, no one will take Lu Fan away." Qian Xing's expression darkened, disbelief flashing across his face. "What nonsense are you talking about?" he snapped, his irritation palpable. "You've gone too far, defying an envoy's direct orders." He moved to emphasize his authority, but his bravado faltered as Qin Shanhai suddenly grabbed his wrist in a vice-like grip. Qian Xing's confidence wavered for a brief moment as he realized the strength behind the gesture. Qin Shanhai, after all, was no ordinary individual. He was a level 57 knight, a formidable equal to Qian Xing himself. "I may be accused of overstepping," Qin Shanhai said calmly, his grip unwavering, "and I am willing to bear that responsibility. But I won't let you take Lu Fan." Qian Xing's eyes narrowed, and he responded with an icy warning. "You'll regret this, Qin Shanhai. I will ensure your insubordination is reported to Longdu's higher-ups." His voice dripped with the promise of retribution, but Qin Shanhai's resolve remained unyielding. Old Bai raised his hands in a placating gesture, urging Qian Xing to calm down. "Let's not disrupt the major exam," he implored. "Whatever the issue, we must address it without jeopardizing the students' efforts." Qian Xing's gaze hardened, but he relented slightly, his tone laced with frustration. "Then tell me, why did Lu Fan do it? What could have pushed him to such recklessness?" Qin Shanhai interjected, his voice calm yet pointed. "Aren't you even a little curious about the secret Lu Fan carries? The one powerful enough to alarm both Longdu's higher-ups and the Jin family." Qian Xing hesitated, his composure faltering momentarily. His surprise deepened when he noticed Lu Fan's choice of difficulty level, Nightmare. "He actually chose the Nightmare level," he murmured, astonishment flickering in his eyes. Meanwhile, in the depths of the Nightmare trial, Lu Fan contemplated his decision. "How far can I push myself if I rely solely on my strength?" he mused. He opened his attribute screen and analyzed his options. Determined, he decided to summon Xiaoyi, reasoning that her experience gained from his passive skill would prove invaluable. Back in the observation room, Taiyang Xing broke the silence. "What's so special about this Lu Fan that he dares to challenge Nightmare difficulty?" he asked incredulously. The principal of the No. 1 middle school smirked knowingly. "Didn't you see how he defeated his opponent with a single strike earlier? That alone speaks volumes." Their conversation was abruptly interrupted by a ferocious roar that echoed from within the trial. Heads turned in shock as Lu Fan summoned Xiaoyi, her majestic form emerging with an aura of raw power. Gasps filled the room as Xiaoyi swung her arms, obliterating everything in her path with a single, devastating strike. Even Qin Shanhai, who had witnessed Xiaoyi before, admitted with a tinge of awe, "Even though I've seen her once before, her presence is still overwhelming." Qin Shanhai stepped forward, his voice commanding attention. "You've all seen it now, Lu Fan's secret," he announced. "He is the first dragon tamer in history to command a true dragon." Old Bai's eyes widened. "Are you saying? Lu Fan actually tamed a giant dragon?" Back in the trial, Lu Fan and Xiaoyi unleashed havoc on the second floor, clearing it with incredible speed. Observers stared in disbelief. "The power of the dragon race is unmatched," the No. 1 middle school principal muttered, his expression grim. "A class without a third transformation wouldn't stand a chance." Another principal chimed in, awestruck. "It's terrifying. At this rate, Xiaoyi alone could level an entire nation." As the dust settled, the leaderboard updated, and Lu Fan's name ascended to the top, securing the first rank in the grand exam. Meanwhile, he and Xiaoyi continued their rampage, tearing through the Nightmare trial. By the time they reached and cleared the 13th floor, it was clear to everyone, Lu Fan was rewriting the definition of power. Old Bai interjected, his voice cutting through the murmurs of astonishment. "It's not just Xiaoyi you should focus on," he remarked. "Pay attention to Lu Fan's own growth and strength. His attributes must have surpassed 100 across the board. Even without summoning that dragon, he could easily claim the top rank in Shanghai City." Qin Shanhai turned to Qian Xing with a pointed question. "Now that you've witnessed this, do you still intend to bring Lu Fan to the higher-ups?" Qian Xing hesitated before admitting, "Today has been an eye-opener. I can see why you dare to stand against the Jin family." Satisfied, Qin Shanhai continued, "In that case, I'll send a segment of Lu Fan's major exam to my teacher. From here on out, there's no need for you to trouble yourself, or involve the Jin family, in this matter." Qian Xing narrowed his eyes. "Teacher? Who exactly are you referring to?" Qin Shanhai's expression remained calm as he revealed, "The North Mark of the town, He Tujing." Meanwhile, within the depths of the Nightmare trial, Lu Fan and Xiaoyi ascended to the 20th floor. As they entered, a level 15 dark sacrifice appeared, exuding an ominous aura. Lu Fan assessed the situation, calculating the growth effect's impact. With the accelerated growth effect, Xiaoyi should be nearing a level up, he mused. Without hesitation, Lu Fan instructed, Xiaoyi, use lava blaze. Xiaoyi began charging her skill, flames flickering dangerously around her. Moments later, she unleashed a torrent of searing fire, engulfing the monsters. Screams echoed as the dark sacrifice and its minions were incinerated. The 20th floor was cleared in mere moments, and the system notifications rang out. Xiaoyi had reached level 11, and Lu Fan advanced to level 16. Lu Fan grinned, turning to his companion. Come with me, Xiaoyi. Together, we'll conquer the heavenly tower. An hour later, at the Trial of Fear on the 50th floor, the air shook with a deafening explosion. Hongwu staggered forward, his chest heaving as he tried to catch his breath. The system chimed, confirming that the 50th floor had been cleared. Hongwu wiped the sweat from his brow, his face a mixture of relief and frustration. This year's grand exam is something else, he muttered. Such absurd challenges. It's pure misfortune. Such monsters shouldn't appear until at least the 70th floor, Hongwu thought, still catching his breath after the ordeal on the 50th floor. Despite the challenge, he felt confident. After all, his only real competitor was Qin Qi, and since she was part of a team, her points were halved. This made him certain that the title of top scholar in the southern province was already as good as his. He threw back his head and laughed heartily. Turning to address the principals gathered outside, he boasted, "Did you all see my performance? Start contacting the heads of the top 10 academies. I'll need to discuss my admission soon." Back at the grand exam trial principal's office, Hongwu's laughter echoed faintly, but the room was silent. Everyone's eyes were glued to the screen displaying Lu Fan's progress. Old Bai broke the silence, his tone thoughtful. Throughout history, every top scholar from the southern province has stumbled at the 50th floor of the Tower of Ladders. It's a critical juncture. The number 1 middle school principal nodded in agreement. It's true. The 50th floor serves as a watershed. Even if Lu Fan manages to clear it, his pace will undoubtedly slow afterward. Meanwhile, on the Nightmare Trial's 50th floor, Lu Fan stepped forward. A system notification flashed across his vision, new skill acquired, shape transformation. Curious, Lu Fan examined the skill. He realized it belonged to Xiaoyi, who had gained it upon leveling up. The skill featured 4 transformative forms, the original dragon form, the dragon maiden form, the destruction dragon form, and the world ender form. Before he could explore further, the ground beneath him rumbled ominously. Cracks spiderwebbed across the floor as rocks began to collapse. Moments later, 3 massive amethyst mountain giants emerged, their forms towering and imposing. Each was a level 20 nightmare boss. In the principal's office, Old Bai leaned forward, his voice tinged with concern. 3 nightmare bosses? How will Lu Fan handle this? The number 1 middle school principal observed the scene intently. I suspected the 50th floor would prove a major obstacle for him. This is where his climb will inevitably slow. But as the giants advanced, the principal couldn't help but add, still, Lu Fan's performance is already extraordinary. His score has undoubtedly secured him the first rank in Zhonghai. The principal of Zhonghai City's number 1 middle school couldn't help but lament as he watched the live feed of Lu Fan's progress. With his exceptional performance, Lu Fan was not only dominating the city rankings but seemed poised to secure the title of top scholar in the entire southern province. The principal sighed, wondering how such a remarkable student had slipped through their school's grasp. Meanwhile, within the Nightmare Trial, the Amethyst Mountain Giant's eyes gleamed ominously as it activated its skill. Mountain's arm, a shimmering aura enveloped its massive form, signaling a formidable 50% damage reduction effect. Lu Fan scrutinized the situation, muttering to himself, as expected, the difficulty has ramped up significantly now that I've reached the midpoint of the Tower of Ladders. He called out to Xiaoyi, who immediately intercepted the giant's strike with a fierce roar. Xiaoyi, Lu Fan said calmly, let's test your world ender form. In response, Xiaoyi let out a ground-shaking roar. A blazing red aura erupted around her, surging with overwhelming energy and forcing the Amethyst Mountain Giant to stagger backward. In the principal's office, Old Bai observed the scene with a mix of awe and trepidation. Lu Fan's preparing for something big, he murmured. Back in the trial, the red aura coiled tighter around Xiaoyi's body, transforming her. Her claws extended and were encased in molten armor, her wings became sharper, and her eyes burned with a menacing glow. Fully transformed into her world ender form, Xiaoyi exuded unparalleled strength, though Lu Fan noted a slight dip in her spiritual energy. Along with the transformation came 2 new skills, Earthshatter and World Ending. Old Bai leaned closer to the screen, his expression incredulous. She can switch between combat forms? He asked, amazed. Qin Shanhai, standing nearby, crossed his arms. That transformation alone is enough to send chills down anyone's spine, he remarked. At the trial, Lu Fan remained focused. Noticing one of the Amethyst Mountain giants preparing to ambush him from behind, he swiftly dodged the strike with a well-timed leap. As he landed, he activated his skill, Dragon's Inspiration, causing his attributes to surge dramatically. Xiao Yi, he called, use Mighty Jaw Assault now. Without hesitation, Xiao Yi charged forward. Her jaws glowed with fiery intensity as she unleashed the devastating attack. The scene was breathtaking. The enormous Amethyst Mountain giant shattered into fragments under the sheer force of Xiao Yi's skill. Back in the principal's office, the #1 middle school principal's jaw dropped. A level 20 boss, obliterated in a single blow? Old Bai, equally stunned, began calculating. For the giant's defense to crumble like that, the power of the strike must have exceeded 2,000 points, he said, his voice filled with disbelief. The room fell silent as everyone watched Lu Fan and Xiao Yi prepare for their next challenge, their dominance over the nightmare trial unmistakable. In the heat of the battle, another Amethyst Mountain giant attempted to seize Lu Fan from behind. Noticing the imminent danger, Lu Fan twisted his body mid-air, narrowly evading the giant's grasp. With precision, he unleashed his skill, Dragon Claw, creating a massive explosion that obliterated the towering foe. Meanwhile, in the Grand Exam Principal's office, Qin Shanhai turned to Kai Qing with a knowing smirk. Don't you feel lucky now that I stopped you from interfering with Lu Fan? Look at his strength. Back in the nightmare trial, Lu Fan remained airborne, his eyes sharp as he prepared to strike again with Dragon Claw. Before he could act, Xiao Yi unleashed her skill, World-Ending Roar, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. Lu Fan, intending to land the final blow, was caught off guard as Xiao Yi surged past him. Without hesitation, she deployed her skill, Earth Shatter, striking the ground with devastating force. The final Amethyst Mountain giant crumbled under the assault, leaving the battlefield silent. As the system notified Lu Fan that the 50th floor had been cleared, both he and Xiao Yi leveled up. Lu Fan grinned, satisfied with their progress. Choosing the nightmare level was definitely the right decision, he muttered. He noted that as long as they continued clearing layers one after another, the rewards and experience would only grow. In the principal's office, Qin Shanhai extinguished his cigarette in an ashtray, his gaze fixed on the screen. It seems the infamous 50th floor watershed posed no challenge for Lu Fan, he remarked. The #1 middle school principal shook his head in amazement. Xiao Yi's power surpasses anything I've ever encountered, he admitted. Old Bai turned to Kaiangxing, his tone inquisitive. With all your experience in Dragon City, can you estimate Xiao Yi's strength attribute after her transformation? Kaiangxing furrowed his brow in thought. I've seen some of the top elites in Dragon City in action. If we're comparing raw power, I'd say Xiao Yi's strength attribute after transforming is at least 2,500 points. The principal's eyes widened. That high? Are the levels and attributes of the rest of us even worth discussing at this point? Old Bai chuckled dryly. If anything, I suspect her attributes exceed even my expectations, he mused. Suddenly, the principal pointed at the screen. Now that they've passed the 50th floor, the mechanics of the X1 mode should start to reveal themselves. Curious, Qin Shanhai raised an eyebrow. What's this X1 mode? Old Bai leaned back in his chair, explaining, the X1 mode was designed by the original scholars who created the trial tower. Once examinees pass the 50th floor, each subsequent level consists of several ordinary monster-filled floors, followed by a boss floor. It's meant to simulate the danger of a real secret realm, where life and death hang by a thread. He paused before adding, however, in the nightmare level of the Tower of Ladders, there are no ordinary challenges. Every floor, X or otherwise, features nightmare-level bosses. The room fell silent as they processed this information, their gazes fixed on the screen where Lu Fan and Xiao Yi prepared to ascend to the next level. The journey ahead promised even greater trials. In Nightmare Mode's X+1 stage, the difficulty takes a terrifying leap. Bosses no longer appear one at a time but in multiples, with their attributes enhanced exponentially. This setup is undeniably daunting. However, let us turn our attention to Lu Fan. For him, there's no need to delve into the complex mechanics of X+1. By now, he has effortlessly cleared level 10. His Black Dragon companion has ascended to rank 13, while Lu Fan himself has climbed to rank 18. From the 50th floor onward, the Tower of Ladders clearly scales in difficulty, designed to test even the most capable participants. Yet, with the world-ender Xiao Yi at his side, strategies are a luxury he can afford to disregard. Xiao Yi, follow my lead, Lu Fan commanded confidently. With a deafening roar, Xiao Yi complied, unleashing her destructive power. In mere minutes, one had reached the 70th floor. Observers murmured in astonishment. This year's Tower of Ladders is the most grueling it has ever been, one remarked. Initially, many doubted whether anyone could overcome the harsh challenges of this year's trial. Yet Lu Fan had shattered their expectations, proving them wrong. By the time he cleared the 76th floor, his black dragon companion had undergone a dragon blood armor transformation, ascending to rank 14. Meanwhile, Lu Fan rose to rank 19, his progress relentless. The 83rd floor soon fell to Lu Fan's might. Historically, countless geniuses had poured every ounce of their strength into climbing the tower, only to succumb to exhaustion or fall in the face of its unrelenting trials. Reaching the 70s or 80s often meant coming within sight of the grand test's ultimate reward, only for most to falter, unable to push further. But Lu Fan was different. He wasn't merely a contender, he was perhaps the first in over a decade with the potential to conquer all 100 floors. "Hold on," someone exclaimed. "The difficulty of the 99th floor is unparalleled. Even if the bosses here aren't as potent as those in the original Secret Realms, this stage is a nightmare." All eyes turned to the screen. "Look! Lu Fan has reached the 99th floor." The Nightmare Trial's 99th floor loomed before him, its challenge known as the Regicide. Four formidable adversaries stood in his way. 1. The Headless Knight, World Ender. Penetration Spear, a deadly thrust dealing an additional 400% damage with a piercing effect, used once per day. 2. The Longsword Knight, World Ender Counterattack. When struck, the knight retaliates instantly, dealing punishing damage with its sword. 3. The Twinsword Knight, World Ender Thunder. Imbued with lightning, this knight's attacks gained both speed and devastating electric damage. 4. The Great Axe Knight, World Ender Beheading. Armed with a colossal axe, its devastating cleave attack promised swift death to any who underestimated it. The room buzzed with tension as the observers watched Lu Fan prepare to face the ultimate trial. This was no ordinary challenge, it was a culmination of everything the tower represented: strategy, power, and unyielding determination. Would Lu Fan prove himself capable of conquering the Nightmare's peak? The Knights of Regicide stood as the ultimate challenge on the 99th floor of the Nightmare Trial. Each knight bore abilities so lethal that even the faint-hearted dared not approach this stage. Among their devastating arsenal, the Great Axe Knight, World Ender Beheading. Locked onto a target, this knight could instantly kill if the target's health dropped below 75%. The Spear Knight, World Ender Penetration. Unleashing a devastating thrust up to 4 times daily, each strike dealt an additional 400% damage with a piercing effect. The Longsword Knight, World Ender Counterattack. Whenever any knight sustained damage, the Longsword Knight retaliated fiercely, ensuring that no attack went unpunished. The Twinsword Knight, World Ender Thunder. Infused with lightning, this knight's strikes were swift and electrified, inflicting extra elemental damage while ramping up attack speed. Adding to the challenge, the knights shared health and defense, with both attributes increased by 400%. The synergistic nature of their abilities and the difficulty of controlling them simultaneously made them nearly invincible. The Shattered Kingdom, from which these knights originated, was steeped in history. Hundreds of years ago, the undead legions overran the kingdom, and its king was slain, leaving behind a legend of despair and valor. This trial was a brutal reenactment of those events, pushing participants to their limits. Lu Fan observed the battlefield grimly. Without control skills to subdue the knights individually, he knew his only option was an all-out offensive to neutralize all 4 simultaneously. "Xiaoyi, now's the time," Lu Fan commanded. Xiaoyi roared in response, her flames igniting the air around her. The lava blaze ability spewed torrents of fire, both searing her enemies and gradually healing her wounds. As the battle raged, the Spear Knight lunged forward with its devastating attack, but Xiaoyi intercepted, using her fiery might to counter. The Longsword Knight's counterattack triggered, but Lu Fan anticipated the move, evading just in time. The Twinsword Knight's strikes crackled with electricity, yet Xiaoyi's resilience held strong. The Great Axe Knight locked onto Lu Fan, aiming for an instant kill, but Xiaoyi's flames engulfed it before it could execute the deadly blow. The room erupted in astonishment as the last of the knights crumbled. Level 99 cleared, the system announced. With their victory, Lu Fan's Black Dragon companion ascended to level 15, gaining a formidable new skill, Cataclysm, capable of devastating wide areas. Xiaoyi also acquired a new skill, while Lu Fan himself reached level 20. The door to the 100th floor opened, revealing the final trial. The observers watched in hushed anticipation. "Could it be?" someone whispered. "It seems they never intended for anyone to pass this level," another remarked, their voice tinged with awe. Before them stood the gateway to history, a trial so daunting that no one had conquered it before. The Nightmare Trial's 100th floor awaited. The 100th floor of the Nightmare Trial, the ultimate challenge, revealed itself as the complete Broken Kingdom's secret realm. Awaiting Lu Fan was an undead legion of over 500 soldiers, with the World Annihilation Emperor as their leader, a level 60 nightmare-level boss. Xiaoyi had maintained her form as the Destruction Dragon, preparing to unleash her newly acquired skill, Cataclysm, a devastating 3-stage ability. As she soared through the battlefield, her power radiated immense destruction. The skill began with the Destruction Dragon detonating the area she flew over, causing massive damage and applying a burning effect. At the conclusion of the burning, she dove toward the target area, triggering another explosive detonation and amplifying the damage. Lu Fan declared it was time to witness the true potential of the Destruction Dragon. Xiaoyi, he commanded, switched to the Destruction Dragon's new form. The transformation was awe-inspiring. Strength, 1,484. Agility, 2,055. Spirit, 7,202. Power, 2,903. With her new form, Xiaoyi unlocked 2 formidable skills, All Things Incinerate and Lava Burst. Qin Shanhai marveled at his newfound capabilities, realizing he still had an ace up his sleeve for this climactic battle. Protect the king! Undead Knight shouted, Lu Fan rallying Xiaoyi for an all-out assault against the relentless Undead Legion. The battle commenced with Xiaoyi activating Cataclysm. The destruction was unparalleled as the Destruction Dragon flew across the battlefield, detonating everything in her wake. The once mighty Undead Legion was reduced with each stage of her assault. Initial count, 500 plus. After the first wave, 458. Second wave, 381. Third wave, 267. Fourth wave, 173. As the battlefield erupted in flames, Xiaoyi's skill continued to decimate the undead. The numbers dwindled rapidly. 98. 42. The battlefield echoed with Undead Knight's declaration, "You arrogant fools. Kneel before the king." Xiaoyi responded with unmatched ferocity, diving into the remaining enemies and triggering another cataclysm. By the time the flames settled, only 37 of the Undead Legion remained. The final dive obliterated the remnants, leaving the battlefield silent. Even the 4 horsemen, elite defenders of the Broken Kingdom, were annihilated. The awe-inspiring feat left no doubt that Lu Fan had conquered even the most difficult trial. With the battlefield cleared, the final boss revealed itself, the World Annihilation Emperor, commanding the remnants of a single undead army. Its taunts resonated with disdain. "Insignificant brute. Your arrogance ends here." Lu Fan, undeterred, instructed Xiaoyi to prepare for the final clash. "Release Dragon Claw," he ordered. Xiaoyi's arm transformed into a massive, flaming claw, embodying the destructive power of the Black Dragon. As the World Annihilation Emperor prepared its counterattack, Xiaoyi unleashed her ultimate skill, Everything Burns. With a mighty flap of her wings, 4 blazing tornadoes emerged, engulfing the Emperor in a vortex of unrelenting fire. The battlefield was consumed in flames, marking the end of the trial with an undeniable display of dominance. "My strength, is this what you call weakness?" Lu Fan asked mockingly, staring down the undead emperor as the enemy faltered. Suddenly, the Lament aura activated. The rare quality Lament ring appeared in Lu Fan's inventory. Level requirement, 15. Attributes. Spirit, plus 57. Endurance, plus 21. Strength, plus 12. Special effect, the Lament aura can be assigned to a target. When the bearer of the aura launches an attack, it accumulates resentment points. Once full, the attack inflicts poison, bleeding, and stun effects. Such a despicable trick? Lu Fan sneered before turning to Xiaoyi. "Let's finish this." Everything Burns, Phase 2. Xiaoyi, now in her Destruction Dragon form, flapped her mighty wings, gathering all the blazing tornadoes into a single massive explosion. The battlefield erupted in flames, engulfing the undead emperor in a fiery inferno. The undead emperor let out a guttural cry as the flames consumed it. Ugh, no. Its defeat was absolute. The rewards began pouring in. Black Dragon leveled up to level 17. Lu Fan leveled up to level 22. With the undead army completely annihilated, the final battle ended in triumph. For the first time in 30 years, a candidate had surpassed the million-point threshold, solidifying their place in history. The Southern Province Nightmare trial was officially cleared. Lu Fan turned to Xiaoyi with a grin. "It's over, Xiaoyi. Let's go home. Do you want to try some of Auntie's cooking later?" The system broadcast a message across the region. Congratulations to the candidate, Lu Fan, for successfully conquering the Nightmare Trial of the Southern Province and clearing the 100th floor. Lu Fan inspected the spoils of war. Acquired items. 1. Wrath of the Ice Dragon Ring. Type, Rare Quality Skill Book. Class requirement, Dragon Tamer or Dragon Language Mage. Level requirement, 20. Effect, learn the skill Wrath of the Ice Dragon, which releases a chilling frost over a target area, dealing damage and applying slow and freeze effects. The skill's damage, range, and duration increase with extended casting time. 2. Wind Spirit Ring. Type, Rare Quality Accessory. Level requirement, 20. Attributes. Agility, plus 77. Endurance, plus 35. Spirit, plus 32. Special effect, grants the wearer Wind Spirit's Blessing, increasing agility by 35%. 3. Flame Frost Cloak. Type, Legendary Quality Cloak. Level requirement, 20. Attributes. Endurance, plus 12. Damage reduction, plus 79. Strength, plus 56. Agility, plus 54. Special effects. Reduces damage from ice and fire by 30%. Reduces debuff effects from ice and fire by 50%. Increases ice and fire damage for both the wearer and their pet by 30%. This cloak will be perfect for Xiaoyi's destruction dragon form, Lu Fan mused, appreciating the synergy with their battle strategy. Reflections and departure. Lu Fan considered his progress. I didn't expect to unlock control skills before my second transfer at level 30. Now, with Xiaoyi's output capabilities, our coordination will only improve from here on out. He stretched, feeling the exhaustion of the trial finally catching up. It's time to let Xiaoyi rest for a bit. Let's head back and wait for the results. With that, the system activated the transfer function, and Lu Fan disappeared from the trial grounds, returning home a triumphant conqueror. Old Bai beamed with pride, clapping Lu Fan on the shoulder. Lu Fan, you're incredible. You've become the top scorer and the pride of our school. From now on, your photo will hang on the school's wall of fame. The principal of First Middle School overheard this and couldn't help but chime in with a chuckle. The wall of fame? Isn't that reserved for heroes who sacrificed their lives defending against beast invasions? Are you cursing him already? Old Bai retorted indignantly. Go away. If anyone's cursed, it's you. Lu Fan's broken the exam record. His future is limitless. The principal shook his head. No matter what, this exam has made Lu Fan famous. He's a name everyone will remember now. Lu Fan remained humble, smiling slightly. This exam, even though I was prepared for it, surprised me more than I expected. Uncle Qin, an elder with a warm demeanor, stepped forward. I've met the conditions. The princess of the Taichi kingdom won't dare to cause any trouble now. The man burst into laughter. Of course not. A promise is a promise. The teacher must have received the message by now. The principals nodded reassuringly. Lu Fan, don't worry about petty matters anymore. Focus on the bigger picture, like deciding which academy you'll attend. The top academies will be scrambling to recruit you. Another elder added, the wealthy merchants in the southern province will likely flock to you too, hoping to build connections. Be cautious of their motives. Excited voices broke out among the gathered crowd. Summon the dragon, Lu Fan. Let us witness it with our own eyes. Are you out of your mind? Someone interjected. That would destroy the entire school. The leaderboard was announced, showcasing Lu Fan's remarkable achievement. 1. Lu Fan, Nightmare Trial 100 floor, 1,299,750 points. 2. Hong Wu, 72 floor, 89,250 points. 3. Qin Kuei, 66 floor, 75,400 points. 4. Tao Xiaoman, 66 floor, 75,400 points. Congratulations, Lu Fan. Old Bai exclaimed. This score is astounding. No one has broken the record in over 30 years. Far away in the northernmost frontier of the Dragon Kingdom, the air was crisp and cold. In the uncharted territory, Marquis Tu Jing was watching Lu Fan's exam video as an aide entered his tent. Sir, I apologize for the disturbance. We've gathered the evidence? Tu Jing's eyes sharpened. Everything? Yes, sir. We can now confirm Shen Shanhai's deductions were correct. Through his interactions with the special envoy, Qian Zong, Shen deduced that a high-ranking official in Dragon City, Lord Ran Chongfeng, was colluding with the Jin family of the Tai Kingdom. Our investigation revealed that Princess Jin Zhe's study abroad program and the recruitment of dragon tamers were both directly approved by Lord Ran. On the surface, he maintained diplomatic relations with the Jin family, but in private, he granted them numerous privileges in exchange for substantial rewards. Tu Jing's expression darkened. So, it's true. Ran Chongfeng is the traitor we suspected. The Jin family and their schemes have infiltrated deeper than I thought. This betrayal must be dealt with swiftly. Haha, no wonder he sent a special envoy to arrest the dragon tamer, Marquis Tu Jing remarked, his tone laced with disdain. Wan Shangfeng, that treacherous snake, aiding the princess of the Taiki kingdom to run rampant within the dragon kingdom. It's unacceptable. He turned to his aide with a commanding presence. Send an order to Ran Changfeng immediately. Inform him that I am stripping him of all duties and authority. He will no longer hold any position within the upper ranks of Dragon City. Execute this order without delay. If he dares to object, tell him he's welcome to bring his grievances directly to me. The aide saluted sharply. Understood, sir. Tu Jing continued, his tone stern. As for the Jin family, if they make any attempt to contact Shanong again, deploy the Griffin squad to deal with them accordingly. I won't tolerate any further interference. Yes, Marquis, the aide replied. One more thing, Tu Jing added, his expression softening slightly. Keep a close watch on which academy this dragon tamer selects. Once the choice is made, inform the principal to ensure Lu Fan receives the best possible resources and support. It's a rare privilege to have such a promising young talent in our dragon kingdom. He leaned back, a rare smile crossing his face. What an interesting development. A youth of legendary potential. Once my current tasks are complete, I must meet this dragon tamer personally. But when will this endless workload finally allow me such a chance? In a distant palace within the Tai kingdom, Princess Jin Zhu's temper flared as she slammed a scroll onto the table. What did you say? Ran Changfeng was dismissed by the Northern Frontier's Marquis. Her advisor bowed respectfully but spoke with a calm demeanor. Princess, please, do not let this news trouble you too much. While this may be a setback, we have some positive developments to report. Positive developments? She scoffed, her tone dripping with skepticism. What good news could possibly outweigh losing Ran Changfeng? Without his influence, how can we capture the dragon tamer? The advisor remained composed. Your Highness, the announcement of the major exam results is imminent. We have uncovered information that, aside from Lu Fan of Jianghai City, another dragon tamer resides in Qingzhou City. The princess's anger cooled slightly, replaced with curiosity. Another dragon tamer, you say? This could indeed be useful. Exactly, Your Highness, the advisor affirmed. This presents another opportunity. Let us hope this candidate will be someone more inclined to understand the situation and align with our interests. Jinju nodded slowly, her gaze sharpening. Very well. Let's ensure this opportunity isn't wasted. Prepare accordingly. Hong Wu, a robust and muscular contender, had just wrapped up his grueling test with a respectable 89,000 points. Drained and breathless, he felt an overwhelming sense of relief at having narrowly survived the ordeal. Despite his fatigue, his confidence soared, knowing he had cleared 72 challenging levels. Certain he had secured the top spot, he braced himself for the accolades he was sure to receive. Approaching the elders, who stood with their backs turned, he imagined the praises and admiration they would shower upon him. Buoyed by these thoughts, he called out to the director, proudly declaring his score of 89,000 and his certainty of being the top scorer. The director, however, merely placed a hand on Hong Wu's shoulder and assured him he had performed well enough to secure a place among the top 10. The somber tone in the director's voice confused Hong Wu, leaving him wondering why the acknowledgement felt more like consolation than celebration. Concluding that this was perhaps a lesson in humility, he resolved not to let his supposed first-place finish inflate his ego. 7 days later, the long-awaited announcement of the exam results arrived. Curious onlookers eagerly approached Lu Fan and his aunt, hoping to speak with them about his achievement. Shanghai appeared, inviting them to step inside for a private discussion. The official results revealed that Lu Fan had claimed the top spot, but his exact score remained confidential. Shanghai then made another stunning announcement: the government had prepared special rewards for Lu Fan. These included the Book of the Blue Dragon's Roar, which granted a powerful thunder ability, a lightning potion, capable of boosting damage output by 20%, a green wind armor, offering a 30% reduction in damage taken, and arrow wing boots, imbued with a teleportation ability that had a 32-second cooldown. Lu Fan was overjoyed, particularly impressed by the boots, as they provided an ability typically reserved for mages. Qin Kuei soon arrived, reporting that the directors of the top 10 universities were already vying for an opportunity to interview Lu Fan. This news astonished him, considering the results had just been released. Qin Shanghai reassured Lu Fan, advising him to grow accustomed to this kind of attention. Leaning closer, he whispered that Lu Fan's exact results were being kept confidential to prevent potential threats from rival nations, particularly incidents similar to the one involving the princess. Lu Fan expressed his gratitude and mentioned his desire to meet the person who had orchestrated this protective measure. Shanghai responded cryptically, assuring him there would be an opportunity soon enough. Before leaving, Qin Kuei handed Lu Fan a card, explaining that it was a token of appreciation. Lu Fan held the card, quietly reflecting on the remarkable journey ahead and the newfound recognition he had earned. Upon seeing the purple card, Lu Fan immediately recognized its immense value, 10 million coins. It far exceeded the agreed-upon 100,000 coins. Shanghai explained that this additional reward was a gesture of gratitude for saving Qin Ku's team. Though reluctant at first, Lu Fan eventually accepted the card, understanding the sincerity behind the gesture. Then, with an unexpected burst of energy, Shanghai urged him to head to the villa, pulling him along. Lu Fan, slightly bewildered, followed as she explained that he needed to meet with all the representatives waiting for him. Meanwhile, deep within a nearby forest, Jinzhu questioned Hong Tai about the top candidate's level. Hong Tai reported that the individual was at level 19, with a dragon companion at level 14. Jinzhu smirked, commenting on how extraordinary dragon tamers were. She reminisced about a dragon she once considered gifting to Lu Fan, now finding it in the hands of someone else. At that moment, a white-haired warrior, Chen Tianzi, stood before a powerful boss monster. With his dragon by his side, he launched a coordinated attack. The dragon's tail slammed into the creature, sending it crashing to the ground. Without hesitation, Chen Tianzi lunged forward, piercing the creature's chest with his lance. The victory granted his dragon a level up to 15, while he himself advanced to level 20. Princess Jinzhu, observing the scene, praised Tianzi for his remarkable talent. He humbly replied, expressing his desire not to disappoint her. The princess then informed Hong Tai that the dragon's lance would be entrusted to Tianzi, who graciously accepted it. Tianzi expressed his gratitude, declaring that with the dragon, the lance, and the princess's blessings, he would defeat the top-ranked contender. Jinzhu, recalling the humiliation she had endured previously, seethed with determination. She estimated that Lu Fan's score was around 300,000, while Tianzi's current score stood at 210,000. Confident that the new gear and buffs would tip the scales in their favor, she ordered Tianzi to not only defeat Lu Fan but also to claim his black dragon as a trophy. Pointing directly at him, she proclaimed that he would rise to become the greatest dragon tamer in history. Tianzi, kneeling in loyalty, assured her it would be an honor to serve as her knight forever. Meanwhile, Lu Fan arrived at Qin Ku's home, where a warm reception awaited him. Amidst the celebrations, Qin Ku asked him about his plans for choosing an academy. She expressed her desire to stay close, albeit with a hint of awkwardness, mentioning that her father had suggested she attend the same academy as him. Lu Fan, smiling, reassured her that teamwork was important to him and that he valued her companionship. He promised that if they remained together, she would always be his priority during hunts. However, he admitted that he hadn't yet made a decision regarding which academy to join, assuring her that he would inform her as soon as he did. Flustered, Qin Ku loudly declared that she would strive to enroll in the same academy as him. Lu Fan chuckled warmly and agreed it was a great idea. As they entered the hall, Lu Fan was met with the scrutinizing gazes of a priest and 3 vibrant young women. Remaining calm, he introduced himself politely, addressing everyone with a friendly greeting. The priest stepped forward, commending Lu Fan's achievements and expressing admiration for the remarkable footage of his exam. Turning to the gathering, the priest announced that Lu Fan was to receive a reward of 10 million dragon coins and unrestricted access to any kingdom within their jurisdiction. However, the gray-haired girl scoffed, criticizing the offer as inadequate for someone of Lu Fan's caliber. She boldly countered, promising 20 million dragon coins and access to a highly exclusive realm, the Snow Kingdom, a secretive domain unavailable to the general public. This sparked an intense debate among the representatives, each trying to outdo the others with their propositions. Amid the heated discussion, a girl with a distinctive, unconventional style addressed Lu Fan directly. She proposed that if he joined her academy, he would gain the opportunity to compete in the prestigious national exam. The room fell momentarily silent before one of the other representatives dismissed the idea, arguing that it made no sense for someone merely starting college to compete at such a high level. Intrigued, Lu Fan asked for clarification. The alternative-looking girl explained that the national exam was a grand event, drawing representatives from 23 nations worldwide. Each country was allowed to send one contender under the age of 25 to vie for unparalleled rewards, treasures of extraordinary rarity. The priest and the gray-haired girl continued to voice their skepticism, asserting that such an opportunity was far too ambitious for a newcomer. Undeterred, the girl with the piercing confidently defended her stance. Based on Lu Fan's performance in the exam, she firmly believed he possessed the talent and potential to excel on the global stage. Lu Fan's mind raced as he processed the implications. This wasn't just about the treasures, it was a chance to elevate himself to the rank of the world's strongest. At that very moment, a notification from his system appeared, revealing that he had been granted a treasure map. A new chapter of opportunity had begun. Reflecting deeply, Lu Fan recalled how the first treasure map had led him to the coveted Black Dragon Egg. Now, the new map pointed to the Dragon Capital Academy, conveniently located in a secure region. Before Goem could further sweeten her offer, Lu Fan confidently declared his decision: he would enroll in the Dragon Capital Academy. 4 days later, Lu Fan stood outside his aunt's shop, helping her close it down for good. She sighed nostalgically, admitting she had never imagined leaving her small business behind. Though the prospect of no longer needing to work filled her with mixed emotions, she trusted Lu Fan's assurances. He promised to take care of her from now on, his resolve unshakable. Meanwhile, as Lu Fan was preparing for this new chapter, his companions were busily teasing him. 2 of the girls who had applied to the same academy were already playfully calling him team captain. Qin Kuei, another close ally, initially insisted she had applied elsewhere. However, her friend couldn't help but spill the beans, revealing that she, too, had chosen Dragon Capital Academy. What touched everyone the most was Lu Fan's unwavering dedication to his aunt. He even went as far as contacting Goem to secure her a place at the academy, ensuring she could stay by his side. The move was so unprecedented that it became a topic of amusement. "This is the first time I've seen someone bring their aunt to an academy," someone remarked. Considering how amazing her cooking is, though, he's clearly thinking ahead. He'll always have great meals waiting for him. Overwhelmed with emotion, his aunt, Han Ki, clung to him, tears of joy streaming down her face. With everyone piling into the car, the group headed toward the airport. As they boarded the plane, Lu Fan took a moment to reflect. He had made a promise, to give his aunt a better life, and now, with unwavering determination, he was on the path to making that promise a reality. This was just the beginning. As they arrived at Dragon Capital City, the group marveled at its grandeur, soaking in the bustling atmosphere and breathtaking architecture. Their awe was interrupted when someone called out for the princess. Lu Fan turned instinctively, coming face to face with Jinju and her 2 followers. Hong Tai appeared bewildered, while Lu Fan immediately questioned their presence. Chanzi, Jinju's loyal subordinate, stepped forward, his hostility evident as he glared at Lu Fan, ready to attack. Even the princess had to intervene, firmly instructing Chanzi to stand down, reminding him that the time wasn't right. The tension was palpable, leaving Lu Fan's companions uneasy. They exchanged glances, whispering amongst themselves, trying to make sense of why the princess was there. Before the situation could escalate further, Goem arrived, breaking the awkward silence. She explained that it was a coincidence the 2 groups had arrived simultaneously, pointing out the remarkable fact that both Lu Fan and Tianzi were ranked 1st and 2nd among the dragon tamers. This revelation surprised Lu Fan, who hadn't expected to encounter someone sharing his profession at such a high level. Chanzi couldn't resist taunting Lu Fan, claiming he had heard much about him. Ignoring the provocation, Lu Fan turned to Goem, requesting they proceed to see the academy. The princess, however, declined the invitation, stating that her group preferred to explore the city on their own. She then revealed a fascinating detail: the first-year student accommodations consisted of over 30 villas, with the best reserved for the top-ranked students. Lu Fan was assigned to the most prestigious villa, while Tianzi was placed in villa number 18. Observing this arrangement, Lu Fan quickly deduced that Tianzi had likely accepted the princess's terms. He found it disgraceful that another dragon tamer would stoop so low to align with such individuals. This thought lingered in his mind as he continued walking with his group. Meanwhile, the girls expressed their disappointment, realizing they hadn't ranked high enough to secure spots in the top 30 villa. They worried about having to settle for regular dormitories. Goem confirmed their fears, explaining that students outside the top 30 would need to stay in the standard housing. At that moment, Lu Fan's aunt, Han Ki, gave him a gentle nudge. She asked if it would be possible for them to live together in his villa. Goem clarified that there were no rules against it, as long as the residence's owner permitted it. Smiling warmly, Han Ki turned to Lu Fan and teased him, asking if he wasn't tired of eating her home-cooked meals yet. Lu Fan chuckled, reassuring her that he could never tire of her cooking. He truly enjoyed everything she prepared. Pleased with his response, Han Ki eagerly declared that they would form the perfect team, insisting the girls move in with them. Laughing at her determination, Lu Fan realized that his new life at the academy was off to an eventful start. Realizing he had no other option, Lu Fan agreed, suggesting it might actually be better for them to stay close. Qin Kuei, with a sly grin, agreed, while her friend teased that the houses would definitely be an upgrade from the dorms. As Lu Fan's aunt chatted with Qin Kuei, her friend leaned closer to him and firmly stated, "We're only living together. Don't get any ideas?" Soon, they arrived at house number 2. As they stood before it, Lu Fan's system alerted him that the treasure map's location was nearby. Curious, he turned to Gohan and asked who the current resident of the house was. Gohan admitted that she only handled assignments for people from the southern region, so she wasn't entirely sure. However, she did mention hearing that the house belonged to a highly dangerous goth girl. Intrigued, Lu Fan couldn't resist the opportunity to investigate. He promptly sent his aunt and friends off to settle into his house, assuring them he'd be back shortly. His aunt, noticing his excitement, playfully suggested that he take a gift to the new neighbor, but Lu Fan brushed it off, saying he was only going to introduce himself. Still, his aunt handed him a beautifully wrapped cake, insisting that it would leave a good impression. Qin Kuei's friend watched him leave and shook her head in disbelief. 3 girls at home and he's still running off to meet the neighbor? Unbelievable. Carrying the cake, Lu Fan approached the neighboring house. He rang the doorbell and waited patiently. When the door finally opened, he was greeted by a strikingly mysterious girl. She exuded a dangerous aura, and her outfit hinted at her proficiency in wielding high-caliber weapons. Not missing a beat, Lu Fan introduced himself with a confident smile. "Hi, I'm Lu Fan, the top scorer from Yongai City. I wanted to drop by and introduce myself since we're neighbors now." He extended the cake toward her, explaining, "This is from my aunt. I thought it'd be a good way for us to get to know each other better." The girl remained silent, her piercing gaze fixed on him. Despite the tension in the air, Lu Fan maintained his composure, already curious about the kind of person she was. Zhang Yang, as silent as ever, simply accepted the box without a word. After a pause, she mentioned her province and introduced herself with a simple, "Zhang Yang." Her voice was soft, almost disarming, and Lu Fan couldn't help but find it endearing. Bold as always, he seized the moment. "Mind if I come in for a glass of water?" he asked. She didn't respond, only gave a subtle nod before stepping aside. That was all the permission he needed. Without hesitation, Lu Fan stepped inside, reminding himself he didn't have much time. The treasure map was close, and he needed to locate it quickly. Moving with purpose, he scanned the bedroom, checked the bathroom, and opened one door after another until he found it, a jade dragon egg resting with the treasure map. His heart raced. A second dragon. Clutching his prize, he made his way to the hallway, only to find Zhang Yang standing there with 2 glasses of water. She said nothing, merely observing him with her usual quiet demeanor. Thanking her for her kindness, he exited as casually as he could, though she cast a suspicious glance at the room he had emerged from, a room where she had left one of her dresses. Zhang Yang's expression darkened as her mind began piecing together her own conclusions about his visit. Back at Villa No. 1 that evening, Xiaoyi curiously examined the jade dragon egg. Lu Fan activated its incubation ability, and before long, the egg began to crack. Both of them leaned in, watching anxiously as a small jade dragon with 2 delicate horns emerged. The creature exuded a calm, healing presence, its abilities clearly geared toward support. Lu Fan was fascinated by its unique traits. Its lineage, tied to the jade dragon, doubled the effects of its abilities and the additional points it provided to its owner or connected dragons. It also boasted an astonishing 5,000% life recovery rate. This wasn't just any support dragon, it was extraordinary. Doing some quick calculations, Lu Fan realized the bond would amplify Xiaoyi's spirit points to nearly 12,000, a staggering boost. Xiaoyi, thrilled, happily played with the newborn dragon while marveling at its potential. Adding to the dragon's uniqueness was its equipment assimilation ability, allowing it to absorb and integrate items to enhance its strength. Lu Fan wondered just how powerful it might become in the future. While pondering a name, the playful dragon nipped at Xiaoyi, inspiring Lu Fan to dub it Xiao Fei. Stroking its delicate wings, he found himself already growing attached to the creature. The next morning, as they strolled around campus, they discussed the upcoming ceremony. Lu Fan's aunt, having joined a life profession class, didn't need to attend, but the girls were curious about the commotion in his room the night before. Before he could explain, a group of students approached, calling out to the girls. Flustered, the girls froze as the newcomers boldly declared they would gladly accompany them into any dungeon, even if it meant dying alongside such beauties. The boys assumed Lu Fan wasn't their boyfriend, which only added to the girls' embarrassment. The moment seemed engineered for spectacle, with the girls blushing and the scene shifting dramatically as they entered the ceremony hall. Choi Zaemin, Qin Kuei's friend, were relegated to the back, lacking the special professions required for priority seating. Meanwhile, Lu Fan caught the heated glare of a muscular young man seated ahead. He immediately recognized him, the martial artist from the entrance exam, now seething with resentment. Lu Fan couldn't help but smile, recalling the humiliation he had dealt the man before. As the ceremony progressed, a surprise unfolded. However, Lu Fan's attention was elsewhere, drawn to a dark and imposing figure seated near the front, a powerful goth girl with piercing eyes that seemed to lock onto him. "Who is she?" Qin Kuei whispered, noticing his gaze. "She's my neighbor from Villa Number 2, he replied casually, though even he couldn't ignore the intensity of her presence. Qin Kuei appeared impressed, noting the girl's beauty and undeniable strength. Meanwhile, the boys in the back grew increasingly agitated, jealousy bubbling over as they glared at Lu Fan, the lucky bastard surrounded by so many stunning women. Just then, a commanding voice silenced the hall. It was Zhao Shiming, the academy's director and combat professor. His mere presence demanded respect, and the students quickly fell silent, the room brimming with anticipation for what lay ahead. The director, exuding authority, addressed the crowd with a no-nonsense tone. "I'll keep this brief," he began, dismissing the need for idle talk. He went on to explain the distribution of cards, each one serving as both an identification credential and a multifunctional currency card for use within the academy. These cards were linked to the academy's point system, which operated as their internal currency. Points could be spent on a wide array of essentials, access to secret realms, purchasing weapons, acquiring potions, and more. He elaborated further, revealing that the initial balance on each card corresponded directly to the student's ranking from the entrance exam. As murmurs of discontent arose, one student complained that weaker individuals from less competitive provinces had unfairly secured high rankings. The director silenced the grumbling with a calm but firm response, assuring them that the academy had carefully accounted for such discrepancies when calculating point distributions. Lu Fan quickly grasped the significance of the system. These weren't just ordinary cards, they were essentially the academy's resources at the students' disposal, a reflection of their performance and standing. The director continued, emphasizing that the rankings weren't permanent. "In 1 month, all rankings and point allocations will be recalculated," he declared. He also unveiled the privileges tied to the top 30 rankings. Those who made it into the top 30 would gain access to the prestigious Blue Class, a realm of exclusive benefits. Members of the Blue Class would receive advanced training, access to secret abilities, and entry into restricted areas that others couldn't even dream of. Moreover, each top 30 member would be granted their own villa within the academy grounds, a status symbol and practical advantage. However, these privileges came at a cost. The director issued a stern warning: the Blue Class is not a haven of comfort. It comes with risks. He explained that anyone outside the Blue Class could issue a challenge to a Blue Class member in an attempt to claim their position. If a Blue Class member lost, they would forfeit their status, points, and privileges to the challenger. Worse, Blue Class members were not allowed to refuse any challenges, making their positions constantly under threat. The atmosphere grew tense as the stakes became clear. The director then announced the inaugural members of the Blue Class, the top 30 scorers from the entrance exam. All eyes turned to the leader of this elite group. "The first and most important seat," the director declared, his gaze sweeping the room, "belongs to the dragon tamer from the southern province, Lu Fan." A hush fell over the hall as students processed the revelation. Some stared at Lu Fan with admiration, others with envy or resentment. For Lu Fan, the announcement only solidified what he already knew: this was just the beginning of his journey to dominance. As soon as the announcement concluded, the chatter about Lu Fan reignited. Many murmured with resentment, calling him a lucky who was somehow both surrounded by beautiful women and the top-ranked student. Others grumbled about how his test videos had been locked away, leaving everyone curious and suspicious about how he achieved such an impressive score. Meanwhile, in a quieter corner, Chanzi turned to the princess with an air of determination. "Say the word, and I'll deal with him right now," he offered. The princess, however, waved him off, her expression calm and calculated. "There's no rush," she said coolly, her tone implying that patience would serve them better. Elsewhere, Qin Q was visibly uneasy. "What the director just announced, it'll put a target on his back," she muttered, her concern directed at Lu Fan. She knew that being in the spotlight came with its dangers, especially now that anyone could challenge him. As the ceremony wrapped up, the students began filing out of the auditorium. Lu Fan, however, was focused on his next move, eager to test out his newly acquired dragon. "Let's find a secret realm to explore," he said to his group, his eyes practically glowing with excitement. Before they could leave, though, a voice called out behind them. "Lu Fan." Turning around, he saw Hongwu standing there, his expression hard and challenging. It was clear what he wanted. The air grew tense as everyone realized what was about to happen: a duel. Hongwu stepped forward confidently, ignoring the murmurs of apprehension around him. "Stop stalling. The director said you can't refuse a challenge," he said, his tone laced with mockery. He was banking on the idea that Lu Fan was all flash and no substance. Lu Fan raised an eyebrow, unfazed by the taunt. Are you sure about this? He asked, his calm demeanor only irritating Hong Wu further. I'm not here to play games, Hong Wu snapped, placing a wager of 200 points to raise the stakes. The crowd whispered amongst themselves, noting that this wasn't just a casual challenge. Hong Wu was targeting the top-ranked student, who had over 13,200 points to his name. From the sidelines, the princess and her group watched intently, their eyes sharp with interest. The count began. 1. Hong Wu's energy flared as he gathered power into his fists. 2. Qin Qiu clenched her fists nervously, whispering to herself, now we'll see what Lu Fan is really made of. 3. Hong Wu launched himself forward, his fist glowing with accumulated energy. He aimed to overwhelm Lu Fan with sheer force, believing he could win by attacking before Lu Fan had the chance to summon a dragon. But just as Hong Wu's strike was about to connect, Lu Fan vanished into thin air. What? Hong Wu froze, realizing he'd hit nothing but air. His eyes darted around, recognizing the ability as teleportation, something typically used by second-class mages. But Lu Fan wasn't a mage. Before he could process what had happened, a voice behind him made his blood run cold. Is that all you've got? Hong Wu whirled around to see Lu Fan standing behind him, completely unscathed and exuding confidence. Enraged, Hong Wu concentrated energy into both his hands, declaring, "You're asking for it now." He unleashed a barrage of powerful palm strikes, each one crackling with energy. But Lu Fan moved with such ease it was as though he was toying with Hong Wu. He dodged every attack effortlessly, weaving through the onslaught with precision and grace. The audience watched in stunned silence, their expectations shattered. Even the professors, who had been observing from the sidelines, leaned forward with newfound curiosity. In the distance, Xiaoman glanced nervously at the unfolding battle. He's amazing, she whispered, unable to tear her eyes away. Hong Wu, however, was far from done. Little did he know, Lu Fan hadn't even begun to show his full strength. Hong Wu's confidence was unshaken, convinced that as long as Lu Fan didn't summon a dragon, victory was in the bag. He grinned, ready to press his advantage, but his cocky demeanor didn't last long. Suddenly, Lu Fan made his move. With lightning speed, he delivered a powerful kick aimed straight at Hong Wu's chest. Hong Wu instinctively activated his defensive shield, smugly believing that with a strength threshold of 280 points, there was no way the attack would penetrate it. Crack! To his horror, the shield shattered like glass under the force of the kick. The impact sent him flying backward, and he hit the ground hard, coughing up blood as the air was knocked out of him. The crowd watched in stunned silence, some muttering about how he looked like he had just spit out tomato juice. Lu Fan frowned, visibly unimpressed. That's it, he said, shaking his head in disbelief. You didn't even put up a fight. Losing like this is just embarrassing. The crowd began to murmur again, wondering aloud why the dragon Tamer hadn't even summoned a dragon. The anticipation of seeing his famed creatures was left unsatisfied, and some were disappointed the match had ended so quickly. From the sidelines, the princess watched the scene unfold with a glint of intrigue in her eyes. What do you think your chances are against him, Tianzi? She asked. Tianzi, her trusted companion, furrowed his brow in thought before replying. Based on what I've seen, I'd say I have about a 30% chance of beating him. The princess smirked. And with my buffs? With your support, that jumps to 70%, Tianzi admitted. The princess seemed pleased with the odds, her smile widening. That's promising. Meanwhile, Lu Fan nonchalantly walked over to Hong Wu, who was still groaning on the ground. With a flick of his wrist, Lu Fan swiped the defeated challenger's card and transferred the 200 points to his own account. Pathetic, he muttered before turning away. The crowd's attention shifted to Lu Fan's points. Someone whispered, he's got over 13,000 points now. Hong Wu, a sharp observer, recalled the director's explanation of how points were calculated. He quickly did some mental math and froze, realizing the implications. For Lu Fan to have accumulated this many points, his exam score must have been at least 1.3 million. Hong Wu's gaze lingered on Lu Fan as he walked away, feeling a sinking sense of humiliation. How could I have ever thought I could beat someone like him, he thought bitterly. Later, in the entrance hall of the secret realms, Lu Fan's aunt appeared, a concerned expression on her face. Are you okay? She asked, her eyes scanning him for any sign of injury. I'm fine, Lu Fan replied with a reassuring smile. Nearby, Choi Xiaoman, a seasoned observer, couldn't hide her astonishment. I never imagined the Lu Fan was this strong, she remarked. If just his kick caused that much damage. I don't even want to think about what would happen when he finally summons a dragon. Lu Fan, seemingly oblivious to the whispers around him, called out to his group. Come on, he said, gesturing for them to follow. Let's get ready. I'll show you where we're headed next. As he led the way, the crowd couldn't help but feel a mix of awe and apprehension. Lu Fan's strength was undeniable, and everyone was beginning to realize just how far above the rest he truly was. The group had decided on their next destination, a dungeon ominously named the Forest of Poisonous Spiders. Known for its challenging environment and high rewards, it was considered one of the best spots to gain experience and resources. Lu Fan's aunt, however, voiced her concern. "But I'm not skilled in combat. It's far too dangerous for me to join you." Lu Fan immediately reassured her. "Don't worry, Auntie. I'll make sure you're safe. You can leave everything to me." His confidence was unwavering. Still, there was a logistical issue to address. "The only problem," Lu Fan continued, "is that we're one person short. We need a team of 5. Kim Q glanced around the area and suggested, "Why don't we see if someone nearby can join us?" Almost as if on cue, Jiang Ying, the second-ranked girl and Lu Fan's mysterious neighbor, came into view. Her strength and reputation made her an obvious choice. Kim Q nudged Lu Fan. "She's right there. She'd be perfect for the team." Lu Fan hesitated for a moment, recalling their awkward first encounter. Mustering his courage, he approached her. "Jiang Ying," he called, his tone a mix of awkwardness and determination. She turned toward him, her expression cold and distant, her disdain evident. Lu Fan cringed inwardly, fully aware that their first meeting had not left the best impression. Clearing his throat, he tried to explain. "I noticed you were checking out the available dungeons," he began. "Would you consider joining our team for the Forest of Poisonous Spiders?" Jiang Ying's eyes flicked to the 3 girls standing beside him, his aunt and his friends. A sharp glint of suspicion crossed her face. "You're a pervert," she said flatly, her voice laced with accusation. Her words hung in the air, and Lu Fan felt the weight of her judgment. His companions turned to him, eyebrows raised in curiosity and disbelief. "What did you do to make her think that?" one of them asked, her tone teasing but inquisitive. Lu Fan fumbled for a response, his face flushing red. "It's not what it looks like," he protested, waving his hands defensively. Jiang Ying, unimpressed, crossed her arms and raised an eyebrow. Finally, he turned back to her and spoke with uncharacteristic sincerity. "Look, I admit our first meeting was unconventional," he said, his voice steady despite his embarrassment. "But that aside, I'd really like you to join us. We need someone with your skills for this dungeon." Jiang Ying stared at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Upon hearing that their destination was the Forest of Poisonous Spiders, Jiang Ying considered it briefly and gave a firm nod. "Fine. I'll join," she said. Lu Fan's face lit up with a triumphant smile, and the rest of the group buzzed with excitement. Their team was finally complete. As they approached the entry point to the dungeon, Lu Fan reached for his card to pay the required points. But Jiang Ying stopped him, her tone brisk. "No need. I've got this." With a quick swipe of her card, the barrier opened. The group caught a glimpse of her balance, 8,744 points. Lu Fan's eyes widened. That means she scored at least 800,000 in the entrance exams. That's no joke. Moments later, the 5 of them materialized inside the Forest of Poisonous Spiders. The dark, eerie atmosphere was thick with tension as faint skittering sounds echoed in the distance. Jiang Ying, her calm and commanding aura unshaken, took the lead, venturing deeper into the dungeon. The other girls hung back slightly, whispering amongst themselves. "Why'd he pick such a dangerous place?" one of them asked nervously. "It's obvious," Lu Fan replied casually, walking ahead with his hands in his pockets. "This dungeon has the highest experience rewards. If we're going to train, we might as well aim for the top." Just then, his aunt, ever the supportive figure, produced a tray of baked goods as if out of nowhere. "Here, have some of these," she said cheerfully, handing each of them a cookie. "What are these?" one of the girls asked, inspecting the treat curiously. "These cookies increase experience gain by 20%, his aunt explained with a proud grin. "It's something only my secret class can cook. Pretty amazing, right?" She turned her attention to Jiang Ying, who was still walking a few steps ahead of the group. "Jiang Ying. Want one?" she called out cheerfully. The goth girl paused mid-step, slowly turning around. Her sharp, calculating gaze swept over the group, then settled on the offered cookie. What she would do next was anyone's guess. That's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more. We'll see you in the next one.